Welcome one and all. It's time. Clash of Kings 24, 196 players, 6 rounds, 2,300 points, red hot, spicy, tingling, sizzling, finger-licking good, Abyssal Dwarf action. Okay, so it's the biggest Kings of War event of all time, and I haven't played that many events this year. I've only actually done 2 previously, which were both in the same weekend a few months ago. I had to pull out of one a month or so ago, month or two, for a knee operation that I had. So this is only the 3rd Kings of War event of the season, and it's Clash of Kings. Last time I also ran Abyssal Dwarfs, but that was before I discovered the fast Abyssal Dwarves, and I was running the old classic Defense 6 Golem list in the previous year. So this time it's the speedy Abyssal Dwarves. So there they are. Let's see how they can cope with an influx of many of the best players from all around the world who fly in for this event. And hopefully we can do some serious slaying, trample some people into the dirt with the various hooves on display here. So let's go through my list as I show you these lovely pictures. And I did notice before, by the way, that one of them has a bit of human finger or something in there in the shots, but I'm going to leave it in. So, first of all, we've got the Immortal Guard, the only unit in the whole list that could be described as slow. So they're only moving 4. They have the Infernal Wardens upgrade, which gives them Crushing Strength 1 without having to sacrifice defense, which is pretty much an auto-include on the unit, I think, because it's only 15 points. Then we've got 4 troops of gargoyles. That is a lot of gargoyles. It is more gargoyles than I believe anyone else had at the event, but I think they're one of the best units, maybe even in the game. And they don't even kill anything. You're very lucky if they do any damage during a game, but what they're really good for is late game objective hopping, if they're still alive, but with this list they usually aren't, and I'll go into the reasons for that. But blocking up enemy units. So they're quite a sizable base for just 85 points to be landing right in front of the enemy. And if you can lock down 2 or 3 or more units if the enemy are stacked behind each other with gargoyles, then you're going to prevent a lot of movement. So you'll see how all these units tie in together and the overall game plan, which I do have a name for, by the way. We've then got 2 regiments of half-breeds. This one up here is Elite, with Blessing of the Gods, and this one down here as Jesse's Boots of Striding, so once per game they can gain Strider and Pathfinder. We have 2 hordes of Grotesques, this one with the Healing Brew, which, spoiler alert, I'm going to forget to use most of the time, and this one up here with Liliana's Tear, which prevents them from being affected by Brutal, Shattering or Dread, which is nice. Then we've got a Grotesque champion with the Blade of Slashing, so he is very powerful, especially if he gets in a flank. He's only got 7 attacks, so you want to make the most of them. 3 half-breed champions with no upgrades at all, and the legendary Bracky Barker, who is like a super half-breed champion, just as fast, but he hits a bit harder, and he's got better nerve, and he has more special rules as well. He's got Very Inspiring and Dread. So we've got Dread on Bracky, we've got Brutal on all the Grotesque units. Every single unit in the army has regeneration, so I don't want to see Fire Oil on any opposing lists, because it's going to be useful against every single one of my units. Everything apart from the gargoyles either has Fury or just can't be wavered. So you do not want to try and waver this army in close combat. You want to do it with shooting, and in the case of the Immortal Guard they can't be wavered at all. Everyone else has Fury, apart from the gargoyles. Everything in the army apart from the gargoyles has Vicious. And we've got, in terms of Strider or Pathfinder, we've got Strider on the Grotesque Champion and both the Grotesque Hordes, and then once per game Strider and Pathfinder on these half-breeds here. So we've got Dwarven Darkness, good evening. We've got Sindri, good evening. And I did face one of the Vikings at Clash of Kings, which we'll get to. Is that perhaps a teammate of yours? And we've got Forsen in there as well. I did get home, let's see, when was it? A couple of hours ago, but I had to eat first. And this is going to be a long one. There are 812 pictures to look at from this event. 6 games, and I took pictures of a load of the armies as well. Not all of them, because there are 196 of them. So there are my 3 half-breed champions, and Bracky Barker is distinct from them because he's been converted with the Black Souls kit to have a shield and a different axe and a different head. Okay, so there's a picture of my list in action there for anyone who wants to pause and look at the stats at all. You can see how many points everything's costing me. So I have a unit strength of 20, which is quite low, and a unit count of 14, which is... it's not horrendously low. You'll definitely see lower than that, I imagine, but it's not high either. And a lot of that is just crummy gargoyles. So let's look at what my general game plan is going to be and what I'm calling it now. I'm calling it Knockdown and Lockdown. So the units in there that are designed to knock down the enemy, we've got the half-breeds, we've got the grotesques, and we've got the grotesque champion. The half-breed champions and Bracky Barker can actually fill both roles, and the Immortal Guard are kind of separate from everything else in the list. They're mainly there as like token carriers or to be solid in an area, because they're quite tough to crack with Dash 17. Then, the lockdown part of the list is the gargoyles and the half-breed champions sometimes, and Bracky sometimes. Because I've only got these 5 hard-hitting, reliable fighting units, not counting these 4 for the purposes of this, then I am going to be facing armies that have a higher count of hard-hitting units than I've got. So, the gargoyles are going to be drip-fed into the enemy, along with the half-breed champions, but preferably the gargoyles because they're cheaper, and block up as many of the enemy units as possible. So whatever I'm killing, nothing else is allowed to fight me, is my perfect plan. So, knock down with these units, lock down everything else. Anything I don't want to fight that could charge me, if I don't block it, is going to be blocked by these units, and maybe even these 4. The half-breed champions are really good at doing that job, because whatever they charge, if it doesn't kill them or waver them in return, they can totally spin around on the spot and charge off and hit something else. And they're good at hiding between units as well. Very small base, individuals. You can get between lines of sight and be invisible. Sneak around the back, going off on their own missions. We've got 5 sources of inspiring in the list, but there will be times that my list is not inspired at all, because all 5 of them like to run away and do their own thing sometimes. So, let's see what we've got in round 1. It is the Northern Alliance, featuring half-elf berserkers. So 20 attacks. Pretty tasty little regiment there. Icekin Hunters. Now this is the unit that I'm always concerned about whenever I face Northern Alliance, because they have bows, and they also are pretty good at fighting, and they have scout as well. So, yeah, pretty solid unit there. Only the one of them though. 2 units of human tribesmen. And let's see, what do they gain for Tundra? What do they gain for Hearthguard? Oh, it's extra crushing strength on one of them, so that one's a bit scarier, is it? Oh, the other one's a horde, that's why. That's why they're more expensive. So a regiment and then a horde. Snow trolls. So we know what we get from trolls. They're just pretty tough and hard-hitting all round. 2 regiments of Frostclaw riders, so big flying units, with Thunderous Charge 2, so potentially they can do some damage on the charge. They've also got a little bit of shooting as well, which is dangerous. Snow Foxes, chaff, not as fast as gargoyles, therefore not concerned by them. Cavern Dweller, this thing is actually quite scary. 16-18 nerve, which is very high, and random attacks, so sometimes it'll get lots of attacks on 3s, which is good, and crush 3. So that's going to be wounding my entire army on 2s. I don't have any defense 6 at all. And you can't take away any Thunderous Charge from it because it doesn't have any. You can't take it into terrain because it's got Strider. So very scary. And the Cavern Dweller, with its chilling presence, dishes out frozen statuses to nearby enemy units, and then certain units benefit from that. So I think that's the Tundra Fighters that do that. So that would be Human Tribesmen, the Half-Elf Berserkers. Then we've got a Lord with the Horn of Winter, and a load of special rules in there, but there is an Aura of Wild Charge for infantry and heavy infantry, which is quite good. There's a Skald who has Bane Chant, which is something I don't like to see, because like I said, I don't have obscenely high defense across my army. It's mostly 5, but there is 4 and 3 with the gargoyles as well. Snow Troll Prime, pretty standard hero monster style if you think about ogre heroes, that kind of profile. 5 attacks, hits on 3s, crush 2. Pretty good. So here's the layout. And before I get too far into this game, what do I think my list is going to struggle against at this event? Before I get to that, let's see. Kahadin says, were there many halfling players at the event? There were quite a few halflings actually, and spoiler alert, I do play halflings in one of the games as well. So you can look forward to seeing that in a minute. I think things that will cause me trouble going in, super fast lists that have lots of flying that is taller than gargoyles. The reason is, it's going to be very difficult to lock them down. I'm not going to be able to just park in front of them with gargoyles. I would have to actually charge them and hope to do damage to slow them down at all. So I would be concerned, because anything with lots of speed 10 hard-hitting units that are quite tall would outrange everything of my list apart from the gargoyles, who obviously aren't the hardest hitting thing in the game. So I'd have to be very careful against those lists. I don't know about mega gun lines, because while my defense isn't high particularly, it's not like the golem list, so it is high. Let's be real here, a whole army of mostly defense 5 is high, but compared to the golems it's not. So a gun line could potentially, if it's a gun line that can focus fire, if they can't, then the regeneration is going to get a lot of those wounds back. You also can't counter charge if you're wavered from shooting, because you've not been charged. So if you waver my units with shooting, they're just going to stand there and do nothing. If you waver them in combat, they can still fight you. So, gun lines could be an issue. I think I would do really well against anyone I can blockade easily with the gargoyles. So anything that's got massive infantry units, like orcs or undead with loads of zombies, you can just feed them 1 unit of gargoyles a turn and block up half their army potentially. Ogres you can maybe do that with as well. Their units take up quite a bit of space, so gargoyles could be good for blocking them. And what else do I think is going to be strong against? Anyone like Night Stalkers that's paid loads of points for stealthy when I have 0 shooting attacks in the entire army. So they're going to be wasting a lot of their valuable abilities there. So there we go. Let's dive in. The first mission is... So you can see that we've got token there. So this is stockpile. So we've got a pile of 3 tokens in the middle. 2 tokens there, which I placed, and 2 tokens there, which you can see through the hole in the building that my opponent placed. It's very similar to loot. We walk up to the middle, pick up the tokens, and try and hold them till the end of the game. The difference with stockpile is that you have them in heaps, and each unit that's on there can pick up 1 of them per turn from the pile. So if you actually get multiple units touching the token at the same time, they could all pick 1 up at the same time. But each unit can only pick up 1 per turn, and then of course you can steal them off the enemy in the usual way. So theoretically you could actually pick up all 3 at once from the stack if you get 3 units all touching the pile at the same time. So against the Northern Alliance, when I'm deploying, the first thing I'm going to be putting down are mostly gargoyles and half-breed champions probably, because I can spread them out a lot, and then depending where the enemy is they can always totally switch to the other side later on, so they're not going to get locked down anywhere. And then I put the hard-hitting stuff down at the end based on the enemy. If there's a flank I want to overload, if there's an area I want to be particularly sturdy. The Immortal Guard go down early in the centre in this one as well, because they're just gunning straight for that stack of objectives there, that stack of tokens, because they're not fast enough to strike at the enemy where my other units are going to, so they're just going to try and defend this area. They've got some grotesque support. All the grotesques have Strider, so I don't care about putting them around in and around terrain. The half-breeds over here, these are the elite ones, so if I can get them on a hill and start charging down off the hill, that could be good. And I would have liked to have had the ones with the boots of striding near terrain, but it was quite late in deployment and my opponent started stacking up units on this side, so I had to put more support over here. So it doesn't always make immediate logical sense based on positioning each unit with its upgrades. Sometimes you have to just react to where the enemy numbers are. And there's lots of the infantry in the centre with the snow foxes, and then all the scary, particularly scary stuff. So you've got your birds and your snow trolls. And there is actually another thing that's not on this page as well. which we'll get to in a moment. So there's my arrangement. If you put an individual cavalry model like this in your deployment, then you get a little bit of extra movement because you get to do the free pivot first. You actually start moving from about there instead of there. So sometimes put them down sideways, you can get a bit of extra movement on them. Gargoyles are mostly going to hide behind other units because otherwise they get shot. People will see that my whole army is decently high defense and regenerates, and they'll think, I can one-shot gargoyles. So a couple of lightning bolt kills the gargoyles, and therefore they can't fulfill their life's purpose. So we don't want them getting shot. The Frostclaw riders have actually got a big beastie behind them, which I think is a king on a chimera, who wasn't on that first page of the list, and I forgot to take a picture of page 2. There's the trolls, the cavern dweller. These are the hunters, the ones that I was mildly concerned about, because they normally do a good job against me. This is the big infantry block, and that might be the Scald, and that's the king, I think, in that case. Is it what's he called? Let's go back. It's a lord, that's it. A lord and a Scald. So, let's go into this turn 1, and it's turn 1 for me. I'm going first, and I think I chose to take the first turn because I want to get closer to the objectives, and I don't want flyers coming out and landing like here, pinning me back in the deployment area. So I would rather go first in this situation anytime you need to race to objectives. And now, if the enemy come to within striking distance of the objectives, they're entering my charge range with some of these very scary units. So getting the first bit of movement in towards the token stacks. Obviously, Immortal Guard not going very fast in difficult terrain. There is a lot of terrain on many of the tables at this event, which I like. A couple of them are a little bit more open, but mostly there is a good amount of terrain and forests, difficult terrain, and hills and some walls as well. It was a really high standard of terrain, actually. I understand lots of different TOs had to come together to pool their terrain resources for this one, since it's 196 players. It's the biggest event ever, so why would anyone already be prepared to have that much terrain in their own collection? That would be insane. So, Half-Breed Champions are going off on their secret mission. It's not really that secret. This guy wants to get round the side of the enemy and start threatening like flank charges or getting into the rear to combo charge. Ideally, you don't want these fairly weak individuals. I say weak, they are defense 5, but they're only 12-14 nerve. So you don't want them ideally charging into the same facing, because if you then get a counter charge in them, you can kill one and overrun into the next one. So if you can, it's better to charge them into different facings. So, the Half-Breed Champions have moved up. I'm staying out of charge range of everything at this stage, but there is some shooting I can't stay away from. Oh, you'll also notice that these hunters moved a little bit out at the start of the game with their scout move as well. So no shooting for me. The gargoyles are just gathered up behind the grotesques. I feel like I'm going to want more gargoyles on this side, and I don't want them getting shot by the birds over there. So they've come mostly this way. Okay, that's into my turn, into the enemy turn, and the birds do some shooting. I think they actually go backwards a little bit, possibly. And they put 4 wounds onto the half-breeds there. 1 wound onto the grotesques, which are here. So I think that was with the hunters there, shooting out of the woods. The grotesques and the grotesque champion are the only things in my list that can see over hills, by the way. You'll also notice that my opponent is not particularly eager about coming out and landing any of the flyers in my charge range. The king on Chimera, is it a king or is it a lord on Chimera? I can't remember. Let's go with lord, because the other guy's a lord. So maybe they don't have a king. He's heading off in that direction, and isn't too eager about facing down on this side. There's a big pile of tokens there. 3 of them right there, so that's the most significant area in the battlefield. The others are only 2. So that was turn 1, yep, and then turn 2 for me. So, what's going on here then? Half-breed champions doing mischief. So, one of them goes straight past that unit. And, hold on, what's going on here? So, okay, that's what it is. I charge this guy here, which may be the Scald. There's a Scald or a Lord, I can't remember which is which. But I double charge him, I think, with these 2. because I think he was aligned with the front of that unit there. Let's go back and have a look. We've got a bit of a closer look at him. There you go. So I think he was aligned perfectly with the front, so I was able to double him. And there you go. The one on this side overruns past him. And yes, I think I did overrun there, and then this guy did not. He went backwards by the looks of it. So we've killed a hero and we've got into the flank now. There is difficult terrain there, so anything I charge I'd become hindered on it. But that's fine, because they're not there to finish off units. I mean, they just did, but that's not their primary purpose. We sent out one half-breed champion into the Snow Foxes. Not really a great chance of killing them, but it locks down the enemy chaff, so we're going for the lockdown phase of the plan there, and it also blocks in all these other units, so they can't come out to play yet. The Grotesques poke their head up onto the hill, which isn't that necessary, but it gets them closer to the enemy because they can see over it anyway. You know what? That's not even a hill. That's a lie. So it is necessary. That's a forest. There you go. It's because the trees have been removed. So it is a forest. They can now see through it. The Cavern Dweller could see them and charge them, but not a lot of other units can. So with my... I'm not going to call them glass cannons, because Grotesques certainly are not that. Half-breeds maybe are. Grotesques definitely not. But you don't want to get multi-charged too much with these non-defense 6 units. So we're just trying to limit that, stay out of charge range of as many units as possible. Gargoyles hiding behind them, there's no need to throw them in yet, they're all just biding their time. And with their positioning here, they can actually look for flanks as well, which is one useful task they can fulfill. So if the enemy moves forward en masse and presents a flank, Gargoyles can take that. And if there's an enemy unit I want to stop joining in the fight, the Gargoyles are going to land in front of them. So 3 wounds to the Snow Foxes, no kill there. Bracky Barker plants himself right on the hill in front of the Frostclaw Riders. So they could fly over my head, but that's going to limit what they can do for a whole turn. 1 unit of Gargoyles is going for the lockdown operation and blocks off the Snow Trolls. The Prime is nimble, so would be able to get around them and hit the Grotesques, but alone. The Trolls wouldn't be able to join in. So that makes it way less of a tempting option. My Grotesque champion is also looking this way as well. So that would potentially not end well for any Snow Trolls that go in there. I think the big Chimera can probably see them as well, so maybe that wants to charge them. So we'll see. I've got everything important inspired in this area though. Turn 2 for the Northern Alliance. So the Cavern Dweller goes into the Immortal Guard. The big infantry block and the small infantry block go into the Grotesques in the woods. And Snow Foxes and either the Lord or the Skald, I can't remember which is which now. You can see these are the frozen markers, by the way, whenever one of my units has frozen applied to them. Double charge there, counter charge, and then charge the individual into the half-breed champion. The Snow Troll Prime decides he's going to charge the Grotesque champion, which is a much better choice, I think. You're much more likely to win that duel than you are with this unit. So, I still think the Grotesque champion will win, but it might take him some time, because I've only got 7 attacks. The Frost Claws fly over my head and turn round a bit. So they're behind my lines, but I'm not that concerned at this stage, because I think this area is looking good, and I could also maybe charge Bracky backwards to hit one of them, if I want to try and lock one of them down a bit. But their charge arc is now like this, because they've had to move so far. If I move into this sort of area, then I'm not going to be hit by them yet. So that buys me a bit of time before I have to worry about them, I think. Snow Trolls into the Gargoyles just to clear out the chaff blocking their way. And let's see what happens as a result of all that combat. So you can also see that these guys are frozen, which isn't doing much right now. Half-breed champion takes 3 damage in combat here, so he's fine. The Immortal Guard takes 7 damage from the Cavern Dweller, so they're not quite fine, but they're still fairly happy. Well, the Grotesques get killed by that double charge on 9 damage, so that required a roll of 9. And I think they were not inspired. So that's what got them there. So a big nerve roll kills the Grotesques, but I'm not feeling too bad about it, because I think positionally, I think I'm looking good now, because we've got flanks opened up. This unit has now exposed its flank to some Gargoyles. I've got 3 units that could potentially charge it in the front at the same time. I've got this guy that could charge them in the flank. So in terms of positioning, I think it's Not the worst thing in the world that they get killed. Obviously, I'd prefer them to live. Cardine says, do you remember how the half-breed champion got frozen? I think they get frozen just from being near the cavern dweller. So he has that radius effect where he makes everyone frozen near him. And then certain units get, is it elite or vicious on their attacks when the enemy is frozen? One or the other, I think. So, I'm feeling pretty good about it, even though we've just lost a big unit there. Gargoyles, 10 wounds, and get double wand. So the gargoyles are alive, which is hilarious because now the snow trolls are blocked for another turn. So, 4 damage to the grotesque champion from the snow troll prime, and that's fine. What am I going to do now? How concerned am I with these flyers? Not particularly. I think I can get out of arc of most of them, especially this one, with the arc being kind of like that sort of angle. So these guys can get out of the way. This one would be more of a threat, but they're further away as well. And as soon as they fly in and land, they're less threatening. They might kill something when they land, if you give them a rear or a flank, but as soon as they're fighting, then they're no longer just hiding and threatening to flank or rear charge. Once they actually do it, they are less scary. Which is one of the things I always comment on about flyers. Using them as control, you're not wasting their points. Just because they're not killing things, you're forcing the enemy to move in a certain way, just with your presence, because they don't want to get flank or rear charged by flyers. So they're going to alter their whole game plan. As soon as you charge those flyers in, that threat is gone. So from that point on, they don't have to worry about it. And more flanks and rears are going to be exposed as the game goes on. So you have to find a balance between that and also using them and not wasting them. Because if they're just threatening for the whole game and never get to fight while the rest of your army is dying, then maybe you lose something there. But if you position them well enough and find the perfect time to strike is the most important thing. Turn 3 for me. So countercharge into the Snow Troll Prime, 4 wounds. I think we've both got regeneration, so it could last a while, this fight. But I think the Grotesque Champion should take it. You can see on this hill, let me go back and see who was there. The Snow Trolls, they get flanked by the half-breeds because they double wand the gargoyles. So they get killed. The Grotesques joined in as well. Gargoyles and Bracky charge into the Lord on Chimera and do some damage to him. The Immortal Guard regenerate loads of their wounds and then do some damage to the Cavern Dweller. And let's see. So this, I think... Hold on, let's go back. Had that already happened? Yeah, he was already there. So I kill the Snow Foxes with the Half-Breed Champion. So he's just fighting this guy now. So, Gargoyles in the flank. Gargoyles, Half-Breeds in the front. Half-Breed Champion in the flank. 5 units attacking that one big infantry horde, and that was enough to kill it. So Gargoyles doing some heavy lifting here. The other Half-Breed Champion is the flank of this unit from up here. And I'm feeling pretty good about this. I've got everything out of the charge arc of this unit. I don't know about this one. That one might still have a target, but I have turned around to face them now because I slaughtered the Snow Trolls. So if they do want to charge into the Grotesques, then they'll be in the front. So they would probably not want to do that. That would be a bad idea. So we've got the King, or the Lord, not flying. So he's boxed in. The Hunters are right here. They can still contribute. We've got these 2 infantry units that are kind of without support. The Cavern Dweller and the Immortal Guard in a bit of a slugfest. It's looking really good for the Abyssal Dwarfs, but not holding too many tokens yet. These guys have picked one up now, the half-breeds there. I think the stack is here, so they've grabbed one of them. Turn 3 for the enemy. So, charges going in. Infantry into the half-breeds there. And these ones are going into those gargoyles. This fight's continuing between the individuals there. Cavern Dweller continuing to fight the Immortal Guard, Snow Troll Prime and Grotesque Champion still fighting. The King, or Lord, countercharges Bracky. And this fight's rumbling on. You can see wounds are coming back to the Snow Troll Prime. He wouldn't balance that very well there, so the model is actually off his base. So that's why it's an empty base right now. So, Gargoyles down in the centre. But still got some left. 4 damage to the half-breeds, which is fine. They're going to probably win that fight. Bracky takes 4 wounds. So this Lord is going to get multi-charged by a lot of different units, potentially, in a minute. And there we go, my turn 4 coming up. So, oh, by the way, you can see these birds turn around to shoot the grotesques last turn. So the grotesques just move off the hill a bit. They couldn't quite get to one of the tokens while also keeping both of these units in their front, so they've just moved next to the tokens for now. And this fight's rumbling on, so the grotesque champion could potentially be rear charged by these units, but then they'd get hit by the grotesques, so they probably don't want to do that either. Then, Bracky and the half-breeds kill the Lord on Chimera, which is great. And over on this side, I mop up one of the infantry units with the half-breeds and the half-breed champions who are doing great work. And gargoyles blocking up the other unit. One of the champions goes into the rear of the Cavern Dweller, along with the Immortal Guard in the front, do lots of damage, but don't kill it yet. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 significant enemy units in the middle that can carry tokens, and the 2 bird units. So it's looking good. Turn 4 for the enemy. Well, they decide now's the time to strike, because if we don't, we're just going to be standing here all day shooting you and you'll regenerate. So they decide to go in, 1 into the grotesque champion, 1 into the grotesques. So I don't like his chances of survival. And we've got humans attacking the rear as well. These are the hunters, so they're pretty good at fighting actually. The Scald goes after... Scald or the Lord? I don't know which one it is. Goes after the gargoyles there. And let's see what happens as a result of combat. So what I'm thinking at this stage is probably going to lose him, the grotesque champion. Going to lose more gargoyles, but then I'm going to furiously counter-strike against this unit and kill them horribly. Cavern Dweller should die next turn as well. So this area should be totally mopped up next turn. Over here is a bit more dicey, but it's not that important because most of the tokens are around here. However, I do need to hurry up and kill the Cavern Dweller because I need to get to the stack of tokens and pick them up. So, Grotesque Champion takes 21 damage and is killed. The Grotesques take 9 damage and are not killed, but they're now looking at Snow Troll Prime, 2 units of Frost Claws, and the Hunters behind them. In the middle, the Gargoyles do get killed, as you'd expect, but they're doing their job very admirably, and another unit of Gargoyles down from this individual as well. So, turn 5 for me, I'm going to try and steam in here and murder all these units, and maybe even clear out this entire half of the table. These guys could actually stay there and just generate more tokens, though, if they want, or the Gargoyles could go back and do that. So let's see what I decide. So, I decide to just throw everyone in, because I think actually I've already milked that area dry of all its tokens. So, triple charge into these guys, Immortal Guard, kill the Cavern Dweller, and they're now lined up to go and land on those tokens next turn. 2 half-breed champs into this individual, and they don't kill him though. Cavern Dweller is killed this time, and the Grotesques kill the Frostclaw unit. The half-breeds from back here kill the Hunters with a rear charge, and they've landed on tokens there now, which is good. Turn 5 for the enemy. So what's going to happen now? Well, everything's going to keep throwing itself against the wall of Abyssal Dwarfs, but I think it's pretty much wrapped up at this stage, unless something bizarre happens and I fail to pick up any more tokens. So turn 5 for the enemy. Charging into the half-breeds with this unit here, because you can see I don't actually kill them, because, did I even tell you? It was a double 1. Wow, wow, wow. So, they're into the half-breeds. If they can kill them, suddenly it's looking a bit scary because I'm carrying tokens that they can steal off me. So we've got Frost Claws and the Snow Troll Prime into the flank of the Grotesques. We've got this guy fighting the half-breed champion still. So the half-breeds get killed by the humans that were just double wand, the final insult. And then they go for an overrun. But it's not far enough to stop the half-breed champion from charging them. It wouldn't be anyway, because he could just turn around on the spot first. So he's going to be able to finish them off, and then they'll drop their tokens, because they're already almost dead. The Grotesques are dead, but they weren't carrying tokens, so it's okay. Oh, by the way, the scoring system for this event, you get rewarded based on the kill differential. So every unit you kill and lose can potentially matter, and the victory point differential, to a maximum of, I believe, 4 or 5. So if you score 5 more than your opponent, you get +5. And they get -5. I think that's how it works. So turn 6 for me. Well, just clearing out everything in the middle, make them drop their tokens on the ground, and then picking up tokens with the gargoyles and the Immortal Guard from the central stack, since that area is clear now. There's one left, so if I get turn 7, someone else can pick up another token. The half-breeds kill the Snow Troll Prime. Bracky goes into the Frostclaw Riders. And it's looking pretty good right now. I'm holding quite a few tokens. The enemy are not holding any. And is there a turn 7? Let's find out. There is a turn 7. So I'm going to get first crack at it. You can see my opponent couldn't kill Bracky with the counter charge there. And I think that's the only unit left. So turn 7, Bracky kills that unit, finishes it off. It was already a bit damaged. The half-breeds move on to the objectives and pick up another one, pick up another token. And the Immortal Guard pick up a second token there, putting me on 5, which is the maximum. So, not quite maximum points, I don't think, because I did lose probably about half my army as well. So, it's not far off maximum points, though. Then, that's a good start. And Northern Lions, how do I feel about that list? It's a bit of a mixed bag list. The things that concerned me the most didn't have that big of an impact on the game. The Frostclaw Riders were the biggest speed threat, the Lord on Chimera as well. They kind of got stuck, maybe not sure what to do, the Chimera. He stayed behind the lines and then got charged. And the Frostclaws jumped over my lines and then they weren't very effective with their shooting. So maybe, if I was going to advise on how to go about using those units against an army like this, my army does not like getting flank charged. If you flank them, you kill all of them, I would say, if you flank them with like a dragon. I don't know if any of my units stand up to that. So I think aggressive play with a big flyer is potentially good, as long as you don't let yourself get locked down by the half-breed champions that are slower than you, so you shouldn't allow that. I can understand being tentative though, because I've got a lot of annoying units buzzing around. Cardine says, I tried playing Northern Alliance when I first started King's War and quickly fell out of love with them. I think they're very cool, actually. I like the models. I don't know if I would ever do an army. I really like the Frost Giant. I actually got Frost Giant in my XL goodie bag from Clash of Kings this year. But that's entirely because I want to convert it into a Tentacle Giant. Just so I can have, like, 5 of them. I don't know if I'd ever be able to use that many in a game for any game system, because I use them across Kings of War in my Night Stalkers, and I also use them as the Giants army, the Sons of Bahamut in Age of Sigmar, when I just slot them into round bases. So, dual purpose, getting extra use out of all those models that I've made tentacly. So Frost Giant's cool. Some of the other units look really cool as well. And I've seen them do well at events. So here are some pictures of the units of the various armies that I took over lunchtime on day 1 when the armies were being probed and analysed by judges. So we've got some Abyssal Dwarfs, very different to my list as you can see. Lots of shooting and golems in this list compared to mine. There is a big Titan at the back, which I think is the Cronius model, so I'm going to assume it's a greater obsidian golem. Some mutated Mastiff hunting packs. So totally different to my list. Not many gargoyles. Very cool looking though. Then we've got some dwarves. Now, this is the one army that grabbed me immediately, and I thought, yep, this is probably the best paint job on display here. And this is green. Hold on. Very green, very dwarfy. My thought was, it must be dwarves, surely. And I think it actually is. But I don't know what the models are. If someone can recognise any of these models and identify them. So I reckon it's dwarves though. But, I mean, look at that paintwork. Top-notch highlighting going on here. Then we've got some elves of some description. It's hard to tell with an elf army whether people are running normal elves or not. I think these are the normal ones because they've got Draken Riders. Are they the only ones that have regular Draken Riders, the normal vanilla elves? We have got some Salamanders. Is it salamanders, or can forces of nature still take salamanders in their list? If so, then I have no idea which one it is. And another list that I could say the same about. I'm guessing this is salamanders. A lot of lizards in there. Then we've got some rift-forged orcs with a couple of the big giants at the back. Very nice. We've got some twiglets, some twilightkin, halflings. We've got more salamanders with their pirate hats. Another very cool army there. There's LEDs in this one as well, but the picture doesn't really do them justice. Very nice paintwork on them. They were one of my personal favourites as well. We've got some very nice uniform-looking dwarves. We have got more salamanders. Then we've got some basileans. Now these are very nice as well. Very, very fancy-looking. Goblins. So this is also one of my personal favourite armies. And I told my opponent, because, spoiler alert, I play against this army. I told my opponent if there was just a coolest army award, I think this one would definitely have a chance of winning. Because there is a lot going on here. There's a lot of very hairy moorbeasts. And some serious conversions going on as well. And some dioramas built. So even though clearly this big legion of infantry is nowhere near unit count, look at all that. Very nice. Very exciting. Then we've got some Trident Realms. They're actually one of the factions I wanted to avoid at this event because they can take big ensnaring phalanx hordes, if I remember correctly, which is obviously a nightmare for cavalry, and my list is nearly all cavalry. So I want to avoid Trident Realms if I want to have a good event. We've got some juicy twiglets now, some more twilightkin. Very nice. We have got, I don't know, they're pustules. Are they perhaps Varangur? They could well be. We have got some abyssals. Nicely purpley, pinky abyssals there. Some ogres. We've got more dwarves. Dwarves quite having a bit of resurgence. So this is another one of my personal favourite armies. This is an ogre army, but with massive dwarves, which I think is a really cool idea, actually, that I've not seen before. And very nice. Anyone that knows this channel should know that I'm a big dwarf fan in general. I play dwarves in Warhammer, Abyssal Dwarfs, Kings of War. So these are very nice. I can't remember whose army it is, but very good models. Giant ogre-sized dwarves. Very unique. Got some more halflings. We've got this very fancy pants. These were one of the stars of the show at the last Clash of Kings, which is a very gribbly Night Stalker army that is technically pretty immaculate. Just top-notch all round. Some more ogres. Some more Northern Alliance, I'm going to guess that's what they are. They've got some snow foxes there. We have got what appears to be some... Are they goblins? I reckon they are. Yeah, goblins. Yeah, there's a winglet. I couldn't tell if they were goblins or rats initially, but I think they are goblins. We have got some Sylvankin. We have got some delightful Trident Realms with the new frogs. Very cool. Got some undead. Or is it... Would this be Empire of Dust? I guess it is. With two Nagashes in there. Look at that. One of my favourite classic hilarious miniatures. And then an alternate version of it there. Got more halflings. We've got some rats. Some ratkin. We have got... I don't even know what this is. Could be Forces of Nature. But it looks cool anyway. It's got some insects in there. Got more Abyssal Dwarfs with Golems. So this is somewhat similar to the list that I was running previously. With the multiple Golem Hordes, Grotesques, 1 unit half-breeds, some Immortal Guard, War Machines. This is similar to the kind of lists I've been running in the past. Then we've got more Twiglets, Twilightkin, we've got some Orcs, We've got some delightful rift-forged orcs. Very nice display board for them. Well, I say rift-forged orcs like I know that with some authority that that's what they are, but I reckon that's what they are. We've got some twiglets with their boats. We've got some ogres. Rest assured, I did not take pictures of every single army, by the way, because if I did, this would be a 17-hour video, and it's going to be long enough as it is. Got some ogres here that are also very cool. Letting you know what each unit is on the top as well is a nice feature, since they're all obviously heavily converted. I think, are they the GW ogres with different hairstyles and beards sculpted on? That's a very cool idea. Then we've got some delightful... This must be the Green Lady, surely. How could it not be, looking at that? But then again, it could also be Forces of Nature. You know what? I've got no idea. Halflings. Northern Alliance. We've got some crabs. I think this is ogres, though. Ogres with crabs. I'll allow it. And we've got some... even more salamanders. Ogres. Abyssals with... This is my favourite bloodthirster as well, this one. I'd very much like to get my hands on one of these at some point. Riftforged Orcs, Abyssal Dwarfs with a Hellfane, only one Hellfane. Gargoyles in there. We've got, now, this one is another one of my personal favourites. It is a Gnome Halfling army. As far as I am aware, I think that's what it's representing. If it's not, then someone let me know what it actually is, but I think it is Halflings. So we've got a picnic going on. We've got these 3 mounted characters. We've got some catapults that are about to blast gnomes off. We've got some frogs with gnomes riding on them. Gnomes on a playground. It's just ridiculously good. Look at that picnic. I don't know what everything is, but it's cool. Then we've got some... Would they be Abyssals? Or are they Night Stalkers? I can't tell. Oh, they're Twiglets. There we go. Because they've got the big Twilight dudes there. Okay, this could well be Kingdoms of Men. With a very nice giant there. Look at that. Very cool. And we've got some Empire of Dust. Empire of Dust. And there we go. So, went through loads of the armies there. So let me know which one was your favourite in the comments after this video. So this is the list for the next game, which is Halflings. You can see there's a nice personalised message on there as well. So someone who's clearly been watching this channel and hopefully not learning how to crush Abyssal Dwarfs with all my tactical tips. So, Halflings. Spear Spikes Infantry Horde with Phalanx. So that's the one word I never want to see on a list, because most of my army are going to be -1 to hit against that unit. So we don't like that at all, so we'll just forget they exist. Stalwarts Infantry Horde with the Brew of Strength, so they've got some crushing, and they're elite as well, so that's potentially a good little output unit. 2 Edge Grenadier Regiments, so they are the faster of the 2 Halfling Flyer units, and these are the ones that have Brutal D3, which is quite scary. And obviously Speed 10 makes them a threat at long range. Forest Troll Gunners, so you've got some good piercing and crushing strength on the same unit there. So a little bit like somewhere between Ogre Boomers and Ogre Shooters, I would say, this unit. Not quite as long range as Ogre Shooters, but longer than Ogre Boomers, and decent at fighting as well, because they're trolls. A Juggers Cavalry Regiment with the Boots of Striding. Boots of Striding are just a really good choice for cavalry units that rely on their thunderous charge. You don't want to be losing it. And 2 units of Aeronauts, which are the slower flyers, and these are the ones that do blast on their attacks, and they have crushing strength 2. So they are quite scary, but not as fast as the other ones. There's a Harvester, and that's kind of like a Goblin Mincer. Big shield on the front, so you want to hit it in the side, ideally. There's also a Duke on Winged Arrowles. There's one there, and I think that's another one out there as well. So there's 2 heroes on Winged Arrowles, 1 on each flank. Sam says, good evening, good tournament. Yes, it is indeed a good tournament up to this point. Cardine says, those are warp miniatures gnomes. I knew I'd seen them somewhere. That makes perfect sense. I have definitely seen those warp miniatures gnomes before. So, very nice. So, this scenario is Fool's Gold. I think that's the right name for it. So this is the one where each player places 5 secret value tokens on the other half of the table. And then at the end of round 3, you flip them all over and see what they're worth. So you can put down 2 zeros, 2 1s, and a single 2-point objective. And you have to put them in the enemy half. So you don't know how much the ones on your half are going to be worth until the start of round 4. So, what is my strategy for this one against the Halflings? Well, we want to avoid the Phalanx unit, which is there. Don't want to hit them in the front with anything, so we're going to try to mostly avoid them. I've put all the valuable objectives on the enemy side in this triangle here, and I've put the 0 out on the hill and a 0 out there. So this is the triangle I want to control at the end of the game, and then we'll have to see where my opponent leaves the valuable tokens as well. So we don't know until we get further into the game. But it doesn't matter because I've got gargoyles, so they can swoop out wherever they need near the end of the game if they're still alive. And I don't let them get shot. So that's why they're all hiding so far back and behind hills and other units, so like these troll gunners can't shoot them. There's an Iron Beast as well. I think that has a gun on it. And there you go. There was Haribo placed on the table by my opponent as well. I did eat a couple of those. So had there been sportsmanship voting, there would have been some extra points there for the Haribo. So as usual, we've got the gargoyles spread out because they were some of the opening deployments. But really, I want to control this triangle in the enemy half, so we're going to push some big meaty units through into that area, and then hang some things back until we know how much these ones are going to be worth. There you go, Haribo Tang Fastix. Very nice. So we've got just some cavalry out on that side. I didn't put too much down there because we've got the Phalanx Horde. So really, I'm kind of hoping that they come this way towards my cavalry, and then I'm just going to zoop and scoot out the way and ignore them. And if they want to spend all the game hanging out on an objective, perhaps, that's okay, because it means I'm not having to worry about the Phalanx ability. I'm also going to use this pyramid, potentially. I can use it as a bit of a staging post for Bracky, who is there, and the other half-breed champion can kind of linger there and see if anyone crosses forward into their line of sight. So, we've got the enemy cavalry on a hill. We've got some of the... What are they called? There's aeronauts. What's the other one? I'm going to go back and look at the list. Edge Grenadiers. There we go. So the Edge Grenadiers are the fast ones, which are these ones here. And the aeronauts are the ones with the balloons. But I might just call them jetpacks and balloons for the rest of the video anyway. Phalanx Horde, non-Phalanx Horde. There's a troll sergeant as well with a gun. And more aeronauts. Edge Grenadiers and aeronauts there. They did introduce 2 flying units to halflings at the same time, so you can't expect me to remember the name. And there's the Duke out there on the sides. So, do I want to go first in this game? There are flyers who can threaten me in the flank, so I would probably rather go first so they don't get a chance to do that from turn 1. However, there are objectives you want to be on at the end of the game, so going second can be important because you can dictate how much unit strength is around each objective. So we shall see. And I've just realised this is going to be an obscenely long video. We've got 6 games to cover. So hopefully I get some sleep tonight. Oh yeah, I took some close-ups of this army because I spotted that there's Gollum on the base of these balloon boys. And there's someone reaching out from the river with the 1 ring as well. Very nice touch. Nice hobby bonus there. So my opponent ends up going first and moves up. You can see those flyers have fallen over on the terrain already. So moving up, not super aggressively, because obviously I've got all these little individuals on the front lines who would charge if they had the chance. So for my turn, I move these 2 up behind the pyramid. Now, so I think it's fine in this instance, but one thing one of my opponents in a later game reminded me is that actually, if you want to be perfectly flush against facing like that and you walk towards it, you can't then turn sideways and be flush up against it like they are in this shot here. But I think in this instance, I probably had enough movement to kind of go, like loop round like that and end up in the same position. So that is something to watch out for. Because when you do the pivot at the end, you can't, because you would have been like this and a little shape there, and then you turn sideways, you'd come slightly away from it with the pivot. So you'd have to do kind of a looping situation like that if you want to get flush to a piece of terrain. Or another unit. So pushing everything up into the middle. I don't want the half-breeds really to get shot. I want the Immortal Guard to get charged. So they are putting themselves in charge range of most of the enemy units. And if the... what's the most that could hit them? Maybe 3 units at the same time? Maybe like these ones here could get in. Maybe those ones might be in range as well because they fly really far. They're the 20-inch charge range ones. And I'm making sure no one can hit anything else, and maybe something could potentially hit the grotesques, but only 1 unit, probably. I don't give them multi-charges available on the grotesques, just on the Immortal Guard, because then I can hit back with just all this here on whatever comes in. If you want to commit enough to kill the Immortal Guard, that's going to be some significant units that I can then counter-attack and kill. And I've put one of my half-breed champions hiding behind the woods here, so if the enemy decide to fly down here to threaten my flank, I can charge them and lock them down for a turn. And I'm keeping cavalry back there as well in case someone lands here. So, there are threats from the flanks. I've not given him any charges though, and I'm hiding the gargoyles behind this big piece of impassable terrain. We couldn't decide what this was supposed to be, whether this was impassable terrain, so we decided we'll just treat it the same as these ones, which is just height 6, rather than difficult terrain, because it's not that flat. So turn 2 for the enemy. Edge Grenadiers into the flank of the Immortal Guard, they were in range, and Aeronauts into the front, so it may well kill the unit, but I think that's good, because like I was saying in the previous game with flyers, once they're in combat and fighting, you no longer have to worry about them. They're right there, you can just punch them, and hopefully kill them, but you no longer have to worry about those 2 units when you're advancing. So I think flyers are a much bigger threat before they attack, and is it a good trade? Because you're going to lose both those units. You can't, let's see, you could advance up behind them. The only way you could then attack me and the units that I kill you with is if you come up right against your unit here, or at least like there, just so my gargoyles can't fly over the top and land between you and my units that are fighting. So you want to come up against the back of the unit, otherwise you're not going to be able to support them. If there's this much distance, the gargoyles are just going to land in here, block you off, and then I can kill these units and you're stuck killing my chaff, and then the units we care about, mine are hitting yours first. So I shouldn't be giving people tips on how to avoid gargoyle chaff, by the way. This is a terrible idea. But yes, if you've got units up flush against each other, I can't land between you. So then you've got something to counterattack with afterwards regardless. So you can't be blocked that way. But it's not something you see a lot of people do. So I feel it is worth pointing out. So this guy is obviously scared of being hit by the half-breed champion, so he's not being too aggressive. And not much of a push from the halflings. They're quite content where they are. The big phalanx horde is heading off down this side, which is good as far as I'm concerned, because I can then try to avoid them. And the cavalry on the hill being quite threatening still. So let's see what's going on here now. So, Edge Grenadiers decide, you know what, we don't like this side of the table. We don't think we're going to walk into this trap where you've got a half-breed champion and a whole unit of half-breeds just off camera down here. We're instead going to fly away and let you deal with the phalanx, which is a fair move, because they weren't going to accomplish much on this flank anyway. So they both fly to overlook the centre instead. So, this flank is now looking a bit bare and not much to fight over, but there is a token there, but we're going to find out it's worth 0, because I placed it, so I know that already. Okay, let's do some combat. And, well, before that, the grotesques take some shooting damage from these 2 units here. And the Immortal Guard get killed, which is kind of expected when they got hit by both of those units. And these guys go sideways, so they don't get flanked by the grotesques, and the Edge Grenadiers turn around, so they're in the front of the grotesque champion. So, what am I going to do? I think there's a double charge available here, because the grotesque champ would go in first and end up about here, and then the grotesques can then, I think they've still got the angle to do that, These grotesques can go for the balloon boys. I could hit the balloon boys in the flank with one of these half-breed champions. And because we're now putting my fighting units on the front line, this is when I'm going to commit a small amount of gargoyles over the top to block the enemy off. So, into my turn. And I'm still avoiding this guy like the plague. Don't want to be hit by him. Gargoyles are still hiding on this side. Grotesque. Let's see. So the grotesques go in here. I think this guy... Hold on. Does he just get out the way, or did he actually charge in? I may have worked out that he couldn't join in the charge because of the angles involved and got him out of the way. Possibly. Or he might have charged in and we might have determined that he actually goes to that side. Which makes sense, I suppose. So, dead, dead, 2 units dead. This guy then goes backwards, so he's not going to allow an overrun from anyone from him onto the grotesques. So both those flying units are dead. So I think that's a good trade. I've brought gargoyles back this way as well. Brachy is still lying in wait. So this is what I've done with the gargoyles. Blocking off the Iron Beast and the trolls. So they're going to have trouble shooting anyone. And they're mainly going to have to shoot the gargoyles. I'm not blocking off these 2 flyers, but I'm making sure they can't have any flanks, as you will see in a moment. On this side, I move the half-breed champion round from the woods into this area here, so nothing can charge him, and then his secret mission is going to be to get behind the enemy and start charging things, but not in the front. But ideally, if I could get like the phalanx horde to turn round, that would be a dream, because I could hit them with something else then in the side or the rear, but that's not likely. But really, I want to hit the cavalry as well, take away their thunderous charge and stop them getting a hill bonus. So, I've not allowed any flank charges here, except for one. So, can you spot the flank charge I have left open? It is this guy, the winged Arales. I think, is it captain or is it a duke? I can't remember. But he has a flank charge on this unit of grotesques because he is actually height 5, so he's taller than a grotesque unit. So he can see all the way down there, and there's just enough space for him to fit in there. However, he doesn't have that many attacks, so even though you obviously don't want to be hit by that, I don't think he's going to kill them. And he's then going to be dead, and it takes away another of the flying threats. So I don't think the flank charge is necessarily a bad idea here, because you could theoretically kill that unit, and if you do, it's significant. But I think maybe you'd consider not doing it, because there isn't a lot of support to go in with him at this stage. Even though the opportunity might not come again, so I definitely understand the temptation. Turn 3. So in he goes. He can't resist, he wants those juicy grotesques. We've got the Edge Grenadiers landing in front to prevent them from charging off and hitting anyone else next turn. So they're kind of doing the gargoyle job. This guy moves closer from the other flank, ready to threaten this guy here. And everyone else is kind of congested still because they want to shoot the gargoyles off. So not throwing everything in, but this guy is going in on his own and they're just blocking. So the gargoyles get shot to death by the units here. And we've still got this very solid enemy encampment here. And I've put my valuable objectives up there, as you may recall. So that's, there's a 2 on one of these, and there are 2 1s in this triangle. So I actually do want to get to that area. 8 wounds from the hero into the flank, which is about what you'd expect. Doesn't kill them. And very happy with that. Turn 3 for me. So what am I going to do in this situation? Well, it's time for the knockdown and lockdown strategy to come in again. So, hit something to knock it down, hit something you want to kill, or hit something to stop it charging into the units you care about. So we've still got 2 units of gargoyles here, and some half-breed champions. So who are we going to chaff up this turn? Let's have a look. First of all, the champion on this side gets round the side of the cavalry so no one can charge him. So if they want to spend the whole game spinning around chasing after this one guy on a 0-point objective, I can live with that. Brachy is still hiding. No point throwing him in there yet. We've got the grotesques. They managed to... Let's see, they kill the Edge Grenadiers that were here. Half-breeds into the rear of the Duke. Is it a Duke? Either way. then they don't do a very good job. Because look at that. 5. Yes, that's not very good at all. Let's have a look where they were a second ago. So it was this unit here, so they had a nice rear charge on him. And that's such a woeful amount of wounds that I can only imagine I forgot to triple their attacks or forgot it was a rear charge. Otherwise, that would surely make no sense. In the enemy turn, we've got the Harvester into the Grotesques. I didn't block that off, but you can see I did block the Iron Beast and this big infantry block with the Gargoyles. Also, important to note here, that that infantry block is actually, I think we figure out it's in the Gargoyles' flank, just, which means they would have to charge the flank and then be in this position and be horribly exposed and murdered, so they do not want to charge it. So, onward. We've got the Grotesque Champion charged into... Hold on, let's see. Did I just outright... I killed them, and then I got charged. Did I tell you about the Grotesque Champion? I don't think I had a shot of him in action. So anyway, he charged in to lock down the trolls. And this guy is still kind of out the game at this stage. Not too interested in joining in. And at the end of that turn... Let's see. So the Grotesque Champion did some damage there. These guys are fighting the Harvester now. And this guy is alive. Wildly. And we're about to find out how much the tokens are worth because it's the end of round 3 for both players now. There's still a big solid wall of Halflings, but we're about to find out what they're defending. So, we've got an objective there, which is... This one here is a... They're not actually the easiest to read, are they, these? There's a 1 on the hill on the right. There's a 2 next to these gargoyles on the right. And there's a 2 there. This is the triangle I put down. So there's a 2, a 1, and a 1. And for my opponent, there's a 1, and a 2. So the 2-point objectives are here and here. We've got 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. So all the objectives in this relatively small area. So we know what we're fighting for now. And I'm glad I've got units held back, ready for that. Turn 4 for my opponent. So, yeah, I think some of the pictures were a little bit out of sequence during that last turn, by the way. So the big phalanx horde are heading forwards towards the 2-point objective, which they knew was there the whole time, so maybe that's why they're coming this way. Cavalry going off down there behind the woods, ignoring this half-breed champion, so I've got a plan for him in a minute, and it's going to be to rear charge the phalanx horde, with the aim of hopefully making them turn round. The balloon boys get into the rear of a half-breed champion there. They'll be hoping to kill him and then overrun. These guys decide, do we want to flank charge the gargoyles? No, let's not. We looked at how it would be positioned afterwards and decided that's a terrible idea because they're not going to be able to pivot round again because this building's in the way. So decided to just pivot that way instead. A bit more defensive. We've got this... Finally, this flying hero is into the game, into the flank of the Grotesques, Harvester into the front. Gargoyles are dead that were blocking in the Iron Beast. This half-breed champion does not get killed by the aeronauts, which is great. Grotesque champion does not get killed by the trolls. The Grotesques do not get killed by this double charge either, which is also good. And I think it's time to start mopping up enemy units. Surely... next turn things are going to die. I think I did waver this guy. I can only surely imagine that I either had the worst roll of attacks of all time or I just forgot to triple them last time. Otherwise, that is ludicrously low damage. So he'll die this time, surely. Turn 4 for me. So we've got a half-breed champion charging into this flyer who came in from the left flank. And it was this guy here. So in order to see him, I had to get the Grotesques out of the way first. So they charged into the aeronauts in the middle and killed them. The Grotesques into the Harvester, up to 10 wounds, and double one it. So that's sad, and now they can be flanked again by this guy unless he dies. The trolls survive another round against the grotesque champion. The half-breed champion gets a rear charge in on the phalanx horde and puts 5 wounds on them. So if they turn around to countercharge him, that's a risky move because you're then opening yourself up to a rear charge from gargoyles and Bracky. So that would be 30 gargoyle attacks in the rear. So I don't think you want to do that. I don't think you can afford to countercharge him. I think you just have to ignore him and hope that he doesn't do enough to kill you over the course of the game. So I'm sitting on a 1-point objective here. I need to push through this guy though because I've got a 2-pointer right there that I'm not currently on. But in terms of the fight, I'm still feeling pretty good about it. This scary enemy unit there isn't really a threat at the moment. They're not looking at anything in particular. Turn 5 for the enemy. So this unit is on a 1-point objective, so they're not going to shift from there now. They're just going to camp on there. The big horde moves towards the 2-point objective here again, ignoring him, as I said they should. Cavalry round the flank, so I'm going to have to do something about them potentially as well. And Iron Beast into the grotesques. So the grotesques are just getting pinned from all angles here after that hilarious double one on the harvester. I don't know how much they actually needed to kill it, but it can't have been much more off that because they had brutal as well. Okay, so let's see who dies. The grotesques get killed, of course. You can see a human hand pointing at them as well. And the grotesque champion does not die, which is good. Still hanging in there. And on to my turn 5. So we've now got a charge onto the Iron Beast. Maybe a double. So that's what I go for. The half-breeds and the grotesques into the Iron Beast. But I double one it. It's kind of a fool's double one. It's not a true double one because it was only on 8 wounds anyway. I do kill the unit here, which was the harvester with the half-breed champion, and the grotesque finishes off the trolls as well, the grotesque champion. Bracky goes into the cavalry unit and does 3 wounds just to take away their thunderous charge and pin them. And, well, what is this madness? The horde of phalanx infantry have been killed by the half-breed champion. So he rear-charged them again, did 6 wounds, and then rolled an exceptionally high nerve check and just killed the entire horde in 2 rounds. Well, that's changed things a bit. And suddenly the halflings have barely got anything left to score with now. This unit is slightly outside of 3 from the 2-point objective, and they're fighting Bracky, who they shouldn't kill before the end of the game, so I'm going to be able to go and get that objective, which is 2-pointer. I'm now on various objectives around here, so it's looking pretty good. And turn 6 for the enemy. So the Iron Beast into the grotesques, and this guy swoops over, because I had these gargoyles just hanging out on an objective as backup, and he's said, you know what, gargoyles, I don't need to see you, I don't need to charge you, I'm just going to land on this objective, because you didn't fight me last turn, so I'm free to fly off. What do you think about that? And he's unit strength 2. So the gargoyles can't do anything about that now. They could charge him, but they probably wouldn't kill him, so they're more likely to just fly away and preserve their points and let him have that one and concentrate on scoring other objectives. So the grotesques get wavered, which is fine because they've got fury and then countercharge the Iron Beast. The cavalry do 5 damage to Bracky, which isn't enough to do anything to him. And the forest troll, is it a gunnery sergeant he's called? Something like that. He goes for the back objective, which means he's going to get charged. And this is another piece of tactical advice I'm going to give for any players now who are in this situation. You're in this situation where you are walking towards an objective. Your opponent still has a turn. You know they're going to charge you. You know that if they kill you, they can potentially get onto the objective. So, you don't need to go that close to it, I would say. You only need to be within 3, so why not stop like here? Which then means that if I charge you, if I double one you, then I'm stuck there, and you hold the objective because I'm not close enough. And if I charge you an overrun, I might just roll like a 1, and not roll high enough to reach the objective anyway. As it stands, I think if I charge him, I already take the objective off him because he's so close to it. So there's a tactical tip for everyone out there. Think about how far you are away from the objective, and how close will the enemy be to it if they charge you, because they might not actually kill you. So, turn 6 for me. Half-breeds charge in and kill the troll sergeant to take that objective. The grotesque champion sidesteps or just hangs out on this one for 2 points. Gargoyles move on to that 2-pointer. Bracky finishes off the cavalry. And I let the opposition have this one. So I'm scoring 2 there. I'm scoring 2 here. 1 there, which is 5. And I think there might be another one down here somewhere. I don't remember now. And the enemy have 1. So, a nice big score. Nearly wiped out the enemy entirely. And that is 2 hefty wins in the first 2 games at Clash of Kings. So my expectation going into this event was that I would hope to just win 3 games, which is half my games, because I think I've taken a strong list. I think this is a good, powerful list that does have some dangerous counters to it. So if I meet just nothing but those, I could lose every game. If I meet the kind of lists that this is great against, that can't avoid being chaffed up by the gargoyles, then I could feasibly win all the games. So we'll see, but I've not been playing that much Kings of War this year. But I've also been playing it so many years, the rules haven't drastically changed over time, so I can pretty much play it in my sleep by this point, especially this list, which I've run all year. And I just know all my stats now. So, we're up against the Goblins. And for the commenter from earlier, who asked if I played against one of the Vikings, well, here you go. We've got Rabble Regiment and a Rabble Legion. We've got 2 Luggit regiments, which are the slightly hard-hitting goblins, as wild as a concept as that is. We've got a Moorbeast pack, and then we've got the Magwans, who are like the fancier Moorbeasts. We've got a Mincer mob, so big shield. Goblin Blaster, which blows itself up to do damage to the enemy. We've got a Wingit. We've got a Goblin Slasher, which is a dangerous monster with a bolt thrower attached to it. We've got a Groany Snark King. Now, I'm definitely going to be underestimating this guy in the game, because I hear Goblin King and I think, well, what's he going to do? But actually, he's got Crushing Strength 1, Thunderous 2, Speed 10, 5 attacks, Blast D3. So he's actually quite scary. There's a Flaggit with Bane Chant on the Loot of Insatiable Darkness, which is going to be handy for this list because there's not a lot of Crushing Strength. And Magwar, and I've never known how to pronounce Magwar's pet's name, so let's go with Joos. But we're just going to call him Magwar. So Lightning Bolt, but also good in combat. Duelist is very handy against my list. I've got 4 fighty individuals that you can maybe get into a scrap with there. King on Chariot. There is also, oh, that's got Fire Oil, which is, again, good against my list. And the Bang Sticks. So these are Fleabags and a King on Fleabag. And they gain Explodomatic Bang Sticks. And that means when they roll 6 to wound, then it does a damage point to them, but it also, or is it a 6 to hit? 6 to hit maybe explodes into 2 hits, but it does a damage back to themselves, which is kind of funny. So, what is the mission? It is control. And immediately, as soon as I hear control and see this enemy list, I think, could be a bit of a tricky one. They've got more scoring units than I do. 3 more units, much higher unit strength than I've got. About 10 more unit strength than me. And yes, I think this could be a struggle on that basis. There's also some quite dangerous flying units, the Wingit and Groany Snark the King. And I will have to do something about them to stop them running rampage through my army. But for the most part, I think my army matches up well against this lot. It's the speed I'm worried about. There's some speed 10 hard-hitting goblin cavalry in there. So that could potentially be an issue because I don't really have the speed to shut them down. They're also nimble, so you can't just sit in front of them with gargoyles and take them out of the game, which is obviously the usual strategy. By the way, I really like the trees on this table. These 2 pieces are impassable terrain, but they're very nice, especially this one. I think I took a bit of a close-up of it later that you'll see. So, I'm spreading out a bit, but what do I always say about control? It is you don't need to control the whole table. To win, you need to control a small area. So, the way control works, the table is divided into 6. So where they intersect, you've got here, this little spot there gives you easy access to 4 different scoring areas. And same for this spot here, gives you access to these 4 scoring areas. So, if you just control this small area of the battlefield and you're controlling enough, if you've got enough units in all 4 of those, then that's going to be enough to win. Just ignore this half the table completely, concentrate on this small square here. Is my #1 tip for control, because that's where you can reposition your units into which section they're required late in the game as well. Unless you gargoyles, and you can just be anywhere and do that because they're so fast. So, let's see how this goes, because we've got, there's the wing it. So this is the really cool goblin army I was looking at earlier. Sam says that it's pronounced Jaws. Okay, let's go with that then. Magua and Jaws. So there's Magua, very hairy. There is the Slasher, which is also very hairy. More beasts, and I think this one is the Magwans. And then we've got the cavalry and the chariot and the exploding stuff over here. Although, speaking of exploding, there's the bomb that's about to go off. You can see there, you can't really mistake what that is. Turn 1. My opponent goes first and pushes up into a position where the flea bags cannot actually see over the hill, but they also can't be seen. Yes, this is a very lovely army. Also, it should be pointed out as well, so this player is from Norway and brought gigantic bars of Norwegian chocolate to give us opponent gifts. So I've got that chilling in the fridge at the moment. I was advised that it tastes best when it's been in the fridge. So I'm going to follow those instructions, and then at some point I'll report back and tell you if it is actually the finest chocolate in the world, as was claimed. Those are lofty claims, so we'll have to wait and find out. So, a little bit of shooting. There's not a huge amount, but there are little bits here and there, like the kings and the chariot and the bolt thrower. Bits of shooting, but not too much. So there is 2 damage on the grotesques from the shooting, 1 on the half-breed champion. And he gets wavered from that, with a comical, I think it would have required 11 on the dice to waver him, so that's kind of funny. Not a good start, though. So my turn 1, my plan actually for him was going to be to see if I could move him over the hill into a position the fleabags can't see him and just sit there and then force them to do something. He could be hit by that one, but that would draw them into a position where maybe they would have to end up on the hill. But I can't do that now because he's wavered, so I'm going to have to change my game plan a bit. On to my turn. He just goes backward a bit. I don't want my half-breeds to get charged by the flea bags because they're explosive and they might actually kill me in 1 hit. So I'm just going to hide behind the hill for now with gargoyles. Bracky comes over this way because suddenly this area looks quite scary. And the Immortal Guard are hanging out there as their usual style, just as bait to see if anyone wants to charge them. In the middle, all the grotesques push up and just waiting for a big slugfest with the enemy. That's the small rabble unit there. Also using this piece of terrain as a bit of cover here. My half-breeds and the other half-breed champion, waiting to see if the enemy push out. If they don't, then we're going to be able to all charge at the same time, hopefully. So there's the half-breed champ there, behind the woods, so he can't be hit by the wing it. Actually, that's not woods, that's impassable terrain, that one. So, that's how it looks from the side. I've got kind of 3 little forces going on here, and what's this doing here, you say? Well, one of the half-breed champion's mission for this game is to get round the flank of the enemy, and what are they going to do about it? Are they going to allow me to just keep bashing into this legion of rabble? Because you can't afford to countercharge him, really, because if you do and expose your flank, you're going to get hit by my cavalry and get killed in 1 go. So you just have to let him just hit you over and over again, or do you do something else about him? And I'm looking forward to seeing what my opponent does about this, because this is a problem that's posed and there's nothing that can immediately deal with him. Turn 2 for the enemy. So the king on chariot decides to go after the half-breed, so he breaks the ranks. Then we've got 1 unit of fleabags, 1 unit of more beasts, both into the Immortal Guard. So they could well die, but I've got units to counterattack them. Then we've got the explodey king there. The other unit of fleabags just pop up onto the hill to threaten the flank now. So they are a threat, but I can charge them with the gargoyles, so that's okay for now. Human hand rolling some dice there. There's some shooting going on. And the wing-it decides to stand here and obstruct the view of the half-breed champion. So the wing-it's kind of sacrificing itself because it will get attacked and could get killed in a round. Probably 2 rounds though. But it's not doing its best work because it's just being used to protect the flank of a Legion now. And the Legion don't want to push forward onto the wall. They don't want to keep moving forward. They think this is a good position, probably. And as soon as you start going forward, that's when you start getting flanked by things like gargoyles as well, which you don't want. So, let's see if anything dies this turn. So the Immortal Guard do get killed, so not being very immortal. And over here, the half-breeds take 4 wounds. So, feeling pretty good about that turn. Let's see what we're going to do over here. Bracky is going to hopefully kill one of these units. It might take him 2 turns. The half-breeds are going to countercharge the king. This half-breed champion is going to charge the cavalry, so get rid of their thunderous for next time. Gargoyles are going to charge the flea bags. A waver would be amazing there, but likely I won't waver them and then they'll kill me. But that saves me a round in the flank, gives me time to finish off this king on a chariot first. So, here we go. All those charges go in. And Bracky does 4 wounds, which is okay. This guy, this half-breed champion, does 5 wounds and then double ones them. But it's a fool's double one. 6 damage to the king, 3 damage to them. So don't kill anything, but they're all wounded. And they shouldn't be able to do too much back to me. All these 3 should survive. The gargoyles should die. And then in the next turn, I would hope to pick up all 3 of these. So I'm quite confident in this situation. The slasher has to go in to... Actually, I charge the slasher with gargoyles. Do 2 wounds. So I can push up the grotesques without worrying about being hit by a slasher. So, can still be hit by the explodey one there. It can still be hit by Magua and Groany Snark, who at this point I'm not really scared of, but maybe I should be. Grotesque champion hanging out in here, waiting to see where he's needed. We've got half-breeds into the first unit of Luggets, the gargoyles into the second unit of Luggets. So that's just locking them down. So knock down, lock down. Unfortunately, I don't knock them down. This half-breed champion does 5 wounds to the Winget. And yeah, so my elite half-breeds fighting against goblins only do 7 wounds, which is a disappointing number because they're hitting on 3s with elite. And they are wounding on 2s with vicious. So you'd hope they would do more than 7. But alas. Also, this half-breed champion charges in to lock down the Legion. So, this is pretty much textbook what my game plan generally is against a long line of stuff. Hard-hitting units hit something I want to kill. Everybody else, make sure those units don't get hit by too much at once. So we've got this unit locked down. We've got these 2 units locked down by the gargoyles. Over here we've got this unit hitting. We've got this unit locking down. These 2 are doing the combo, locking down and trying to kill at the same time. So I think the half-breed champions are very important to this list because they can fill both roles in the list, which the other units can't really do because they can't get into the same kind of spaces and they don't pack the same punch in terms of the gargoyles for chaff. So, not a lot of kills. My opponent decides, you know what, I'm not going to countercharge you gargoyles. I'm just going to move sideways, and because I'm nimble, I can do a pivot. So we were actually talking about ways that maybe he could get away from the gargoyles, and sideways wasn't going to do it because you wouldn't be an inch away. And then we decided, actually, yeah, you're nimble, so you could go sideways and then you can do a pivot. And the shape of your unit should allow you to, at some point, get an inch away from them. So we figured out that that was doable. So that's a good tip there for anyone who thinks maybe, I can't move sideways and get away from the enemy because I'll still be within an inch. Actually, if you're nimble, you might have a cheeky pivot at the end of it. Unless you're a flyer, in which case you would also have lost nimble as a result of being disordered. So, that allows the Magwans to flank charge the gargoyles, which should be enough to kill them anyway. So it doesn't change a great deal, but it puts this cavalry unit in a slightly better position, perhaps. And here's a bit of a close-up I took of that bit of impassable terrain, just because I thought it was very nice. I don't know whose it is. So these 3, triple charging the grotesques. Slasher into the gargoyles, as you'd expect, and a king goes in there as well. And the Luggets strike back against their foes. And the Wingets back into the half-breed champion. And the Legion into this half-breed champion. So let's see how that goes. The Luggets do some decent damage there, but don't kill them. The Gargoyles are killed, as you'd expect. And the Grotesques are absolutely massacred. And the Explodey dude blows himself up, of course. But at this stage, I'm realising, you know what, that Groany Snark, I should not be underestimating him. He's actually dangerous. So that triple charge that I was happy to allow, I took no effort to block any of those units, which would have been difficult anyway because this one can fly. But I don't know if he's actually taller than a Gargoyle. He would have still been able to see Grotesques though. But I could have positioned Gargoyles just directly in front of the Grotesques so that minimal units would have been able to hit them. But I just underestimated particularly these two, so that's one unit down. So that's not very nice. So, next up, this guy gets wavered by the Fleabags, which is fine because he can still countercharge. And the King does a little bit of damage there to the half-breeds, and the Gargoyles on the hill get killed. Owen says, is the Wingit a GW Lamassu on a fly stand? You know what? I don't know. Let's go back and have a look. It's not an actual Lamassu, but it does look similar to one. So I don't know if it's like a proxy Lamassu or if there's some custom work going on here. Someone in the chat or in the comments will know and be able to tell us where are some of these models from, the furry ones. Are they custom? Are they third party? So, onward. He gets wavered, damage there. Gargoyle's dead. Sam says they are Ramshackle Games Dungers. Well, there you go. I'll have to tell Mr. Ramshackle himself when I next see him that this army was very impressive and many of his models were used in it. So I'm still feeling pretty good. I should be able to mop up these 3 units this turn and then turn around and face the enemy. And the half-breeds would almost certainly die though, the turn after that. But then I should be able to kill this unit afterwards with my 2 heroes here. So with this being control, I want to kill any unit that's going to score. So really I need to kill everything here. Turn 3 for me. So that bit goes swimmingly. I kill all those units as expected. And now I'm positioned ready to strike a decisive blow next turn into all these. So this unit has actually been damaging itself, I think, when it did damage with the Explodey Sticks of Doom, not just the Gargoyles wounding them. So this unit should die, but I think these 2 are enough to take out these 2. The Slasher goes into yet another unit of Gargoyles. I'm having to throw them all away, which is sad. I mean, the Gargoyles go into the Slasher, so I'm having to throw him away. Then Grotesques into the Mincer Mob. Grotesque Champion into the Luggets, and the half-breeds finish off the other Lugget unit at the second attempt. And what I should have done is left them facing forwards, because as it stands now, I'm going to struggle to actually hit them unless he gets out the way. Because if I'm facing forwards there, then I can just pivot straight into the flank. As it stands now, I'm actually in the front, so I can't hit them in the flank anymore. But I was concerned about things coming from this direction, you see. Half-breed Champion finishes off the Wingit and is now looking into this unit here, who have taken some damage already from the Half-breed Champion, who hits them again. Hold on, when did he start hitting them? So he was already in combat with them last turn. Okay, in this turn. So foolishly, I think I probably forgot that Magua was an individual because he's on the little square base, even though I've used him myself in the past, so you shouldn't forget that. And Bracky actually ends up leaving himself because I overran, which was totally unnecessary. He ends up getting charged by Magua, who has Duelist, so he is actually a threat to Bracky. We've got Groany Snark and a King into the flank of the Grotesques there, and the Mincer Mob into the front, Luggets back into the Grotesque Champion, 4 wounds done. And the Grotesques die. Groany Snark does about 1 billion wounds to them on his own. So that guy is just a nightmare. More Gargoyles dead, but we've got the Slasher locked down again for the turn. So we've got another turn to deal with him. So, it's not looking too great in this area now. But I still feel pretty good about it. Bracky takes 3 wounds. But, so this is another sloppy moment from Bracky. Because he's been charged in the flank there, he can now no longer charge one of these scoring units because he can't do the pivot first to see them. Because this guy's right next to him, so you can't pivot and stop on an enemy unit like that. so he can't turn around and face this way. So Bracky should not have overrun at all. It's just I didn't see this guy as a threat coming from over here at the time, or just didn't spot him. Maybe the tree was in my eye line or something. But I didn't consider him an issue. So just be aware of your surroundings. Half-breeds get killed there, but this unit actually does more damage to itself, so he should be able to kill them next turn now. Okay, so turn 4 for me. Well, Half-breed champion gets in there, does loads of wounds, needs a 4 to kill them, and rolls a 3. Wow, wow, wow. So very sad. I think it was a 4 to kill them anyway, so it looks like they're on 10 wounds. So are they 12, 14 maybe? Maybe. And over here, Bracky can only countercharge and does 3 wounds and regenerates some of his. So next turn, if Bracky's still up, then he can then charge off backwards now because he's at the right alignment. 2 half-breed champions trying to kill this legion of goblin rabble. They're getting some work done, but it's going to take a while. Grotesque champion turns and charges into the mincer mob because he could see them, because he was standing pretty much here, and then went straight in there, allowing then the half-breeds to charge into the front of the luggets and finish them off. So, the mincer mob are proving quite tough to crack though. It would help if I could roll better on my attacks against it, but it is big shield, defense 6 in the front, so it's not that easy. Okay, so it's looking very even, and we're just slaughtering each other's armies at this point. So, turn 5 for the enemy. Magua goes after the half-breed champion down here, instead of Bracky, just ignores Bracky. And the cavalry countercharge in there. The Magwans go after Bracky up there, so this is just the regular half-breed champion. Groany Snark and the mincer mob go into the grotesque champion, and then the king into the half-breeds. And the slasher into them as well, so we got some kind of measuring equipment out and lasers to make sure both of them could get in there, and we established they could. Because obviously if the slasher had to go on the left of this combat rather than the right, it wouldn't have been able to work, but we figured out that this guy would go on the left. Okay, so let's see who's alive after this. Well, that guy's dead, which is sad, because now this unit is free and able to score, potentially. Bracky gets wavered. So Bracky, what he wanted to do, I think he can see over this unit, potentially. He was just going to go, zoop, zoop, charge that unit, and finish them off. So they're actually dead now. But instead, he has to countercharge the Magwans. And it might take 2 turns to kill them. So, Grotesque Champion dead. Half-breeds wavered, which is good because they can now countercharge somebody. And there's a king in there who they can countercharge, kill him, and then overrun into another unit. So it's not looking great. In terms of scenario scoring, these two could both score points now, these 2 units, because I feel like there was the one Bracky. I'm going to put it down as a mistake, but also it was the mistake of not being aware of maybe where Magua was, or forgetting that he was an individual, or some combination of those things, which led to Bracky getting bogged down over here, when really both these units should be dead by now, and Magua should be irrelevant. Then, turn 5 for me, so Bracky countercharging there does 5 wounds, wavers them. Would have been nice to kill them in one go. The half-breeds overrun after killing the king into the slasher, do some decent damage. Half-breed champion into the mincer mob. Half-breed champion, the other one, that one ran away. This one went into the legion, did some more wounds, and then I double-wanded them. Over here you can see this unit Fleabag's running away with their 10 damage stacked up on them. So if Bracky is able to fight next turn, he's going to charge them. Okay, well, in saying that, even though he'd wavered them, Magua, on the hill, decided to throw a lightning bolt at Bracky, did, I think it was just 1 wound, and then wavered him, so he can't do anything next turn. So if you want the real trick to beating this Abyssal Dwarf list, it's just waver everything with shooting. They can't do anything about it. This guy gets countercharged by the Legion and wavered. And this guy takes some damage from the mincer mob, but doesn't die. The half-breeds take loads of damage from Groany Snark, and the slasher but they do not die. They get double wand. So it swings around, doesn't it? The old dice game. So that's the end of turn 6. And the enemy are currently winning. I don't have that many scoring units left. But there is a turn 7, so there is hope. So, my opponent, Magua and the Magwans into Bracky. We've got this little guy. I'm not sure if he's a little wizard or something, but he goes after the half-breeds to try and slow them down, and the Mincer Mob on the half-breed champion. As you can see, the half-breeds previously killed the slasher. Then, on my turn, well, you can see Bracky didn't make it out that turn. So there are 2 enemy scoring units, 1 there, I've only got 1 left, so I'm definitely going to lose at this stage. And it was looking that way for the last couple of turns, and clearly, obviously these 2 units should be dead, but so should this unit. So maybe what I think the outcome possibly could have been is I'm very likely to kill the Mincer Mob now because I've already been attacking it multiple times. So maybe all the scoring units should be dead and we just get a 0-0 draw. Is a situation that could have feasibly come up. A few units were spared with very low nerve rolls, but that was on both sides, so I don't think either of us could really complain about that. Both of us had some unlucky rolls, even though we have totally slaughtered each other's armies still. So my turn, nothing I can do over here, but I do manage to kill the Mincers. So this unit is now in the enemy central section, so I'm scoring 2. My opponent is scoring 2 here and 1 there, so it's a 3-2 loss. But we both killed over 1,800 points each. I killed slightly more, but not enough for a bonus point. So what a total bloodbath. We've got 3 units left each. And we did a lot of trading units. A lot of units survived longer than they should, but it was still a bloodbath. And what it came down to is that my opponent had more scoring units, I think. That's the most important thing in this scenario. And that's what's the case at the end. I've only got 1 left, my opponent has 2, so that's why it's a win for the Goblins. So, very good game. We were fighting all the way through it, and not a lot alive left at the end. That's how you want a Kings of War game to be. We both did some nice moves as well, I thought. Some cool, interesting positions we took up. So it wasn't just swinging until everyone's dead. I think it was just a good game overall. Next round is against the Order of the Brother Mark. So, 3 units of villain penitents. We've got a regiment, a legion, and a legion. So these are peasants with crushing strength. How does a peasant have crushing strength? Well, I would say there's strength in numbers, so I assume they're unionized peasants. And that's how they're granted their crushing strength. We've got paladin monster slayers with brew of strength, so they have got crushing strength and vicious against monsters and titans, so we don't have any of those, so that doesn't matter. There's a bit of iron resolve in this list. There's some bowmen, just standard bowmen, 24-inch range. There's 2 Order of the Abyssal Hunt cavalry regiments who have Slayer, which is good against the grotesques. You get the Slayer bonus against them. They have Crushing and Thunderous, lots of iron resolve going around. Skirmishers, which is a cavalry unit, fast cavalry chaff with some Thunderous. 2 War Machines with a Blast D3, and they have 2 shots each, and Shattering. We've got a Chaplain with battle hymns. He's got Heal, Host Shadow Beast, so that's quite scary as a combat thing. A Priest with Heal and Bane Chant, and High Chaplain with Bane Chant and Heal as well. So, decent amount of healing, but Bane Chant is the most important thing there. That's one thing I don't like to see. Then, finally, High Paladin on Dragon with Aegis of the Elohai. So that's extra iron resolve, I think. So that's scary. Dragons are one thing that we are scared of in this list, because I don't have a lot to shut them down. And the scenario is push. So, this is one my army does not really like, because it involves having tokens on your units, which slows you down. Ordinarily, previously in Kings of War, I would just stack up all my tokens on the Immortal Guard and say, okay, they're going to go and score 1,000,000 points on their own. But they changed it so that each unit can now only score one of the tokens it's carrying in push. So I will probably start off all the tokens on the Immortal Guard, just so they don't slow anyone else down, but then I'll get towards the centre and then I'll drop the tokens off somewhere so that other units can pick them up later, like gargoyles, who don't want to be carrying them around early because they're fast, you don't want to be slowed down. Again, a lot of terrain. Ignore these stairs. Those aren't terrain, that's just for supporting your units on hills. So, if we look, we've got the archers over there, backed up by the dragon. We've got the artillery there and there. We've got some knights there and there. We've got the big infantry blocks there. A smaller infantry block there. And light cavalry there. And some small unit of peasants out on this flank. So, these are the kind of units gargoyles are going to thrive against, because it's a massive footprint, and one unit of gargoyles in front of them is an 85-point roadblock for a turn that stops significant units from doing anything. So I think that element of the matchup is good. Dragon, I think, is tricky. War machines could be tough if they get some lucky shots in. They could potentially one-shot a unit if they get really lucky. But overall, I think the enemy is more equipped for the scenario. But in a straight-out fight between these two armies, I think I would favour mine. I've got more speed, and I can block the enemy quite well, I think. We'll see if it works out that way. So I've got my usual gargoyles hiding so they don't get shot by anything like artillery. That would be the juiciest target for them. Spreading out my half-breed champions, and Bracky is on the left flank. So, Bracky, his personal mission, I think these war machines are very dangerous because I need to be advancing on the enemy, so I can't just hide in this corner for the whole game. I've also deployed miles away from the archers because I just don't want to deal with them. They've got ensnare, or is it phalanx they've got? I think it's phalanx on there. Like stakes that they've put at the front of the unit there. So, I'm just going to ignore them. They've got one of the tokens, but I don't care. I'm just not going to bother with the archers at all. Going to try and just stay away from them. So on this side, I want to stop the war machines, so I'm going to send some half-breed champions out and try and kill them. Because I don't want them shooting down my token-carrying gargoyles in turn 6. So there's the dragon. This is a very nice army, another really nice army. And it's so weird that these big peasant units are like the highlights of the whole army, because they're these classic little dioramas on there. Got some nice gallows, statue, and they're just really nice peasants. You don't get to say that often. And there's the cavalry. Okay, so all my tokens on the Immortal Guard. Enemy tokens, one on each peasant legion, and one on the archers. And then one in the centre. So, if I can get the one in the centre, get all my tokens into the other half, it doesn't matter what the enemy do with theirs. So, I'm feeling pretty good. I go first with push. Generally, I think going first if you kind of want to go first on push, I would say, because you want to get towards the centre line. If there's a fight happening, you want it taking place slightly inside the enemy half, so that if it goes well, you're scoring big. If it doesn't go well, they're scoring small. If the fight happens here, then enemy units that end up here with tokens are scoring big, which you don't want. So you want to fight on push just slightly in the enemy half. So going first is usually my preference in this one. So we have, yeah, just an advance. Nothing too exciting. Got him behind the hill there. They're kind of a flyer deterrent. If the big dragon wants to come and land here, I can charge him with the half-breed champion. Other than that, nothing too fancy, just going up there really fast and trying to get into combat as early as possible. Staying out of charge range of some of the scarier stuff, like the knights at the back there. Turn 1 for the enemy. So the dragon is staying out of the charge arc of the gargoyles, and also the half-breeds, who seem to be missing half their unit right now. I think I was using it to check whether they would fit in somewhere. So I'm going to have to stop this guy with the half-breed champion. Peasants advance, which they kind of have to in push. You want to get further afield with those tokens. And there's not a huge advance. A little bit. And some shooting damage is splattered out there onto the half-breed champion. And onto my turn 2. So not very eventful. So half-breed champion into the dragon, and those are the wound rolls there. So hits with all his attacks, and then wounds with all 6. And the reason he's down to 3 wounds, though, is because he has Iron Resolve and the upgrade, so once per game he has Iron Resolve 3. So he gets 3 wounds back. Well, that's a good start. One half-breed champion charges the peasants in difficult terrain. Bracky is making his way straight towards that war machine. And this guy, I'll show you what he's done from the wide shot. So Bracky is in a position where he can charge. If the knights don't move, he can charge them. If they do move, he can charge the peasants, or he can charge the war machine. This guy can charge a war machine. If the cavalry there charge him, then he doesn't mind too much about that, because he can kill them. I think he would take them in a fight, possibly. And that leaves all this infantry with not much support if these guys are caught chasing my individuals around. So these big 3 infantry blocks here, I think I could do some good work on them. I think I've got my grotesques in charge range of these knights, but they would be hindered going through that terrain, so I'm not too scared of them, and then I would be able to hit them with not just the grotesques, but maybe a flank charge would open up there as well. So we'll see if any of these infantry units are interested in charging. I'm right next to the objective there. I think I've left the Immortal Guard in charge range of something, but not the grotesques. So let's find out what that happens. Okay, so I did put the grotesques in charge range of just 1 unit, I think. But I put the Immortal Guard in front of them so they couldn't be double charged. Yeah, so that's it. So 1 legion straight into the grotesques and picks up the token, and the horde into the Immortal Guard. Now, if this doesn't go well for them, they're going to get flanked by the half-breeds. So they better pray. The horsemen, the knights, get into the grotesques through the difficult terrain. And the archers move up a bit, and they're going to try and shoot my half-breeds on the hill. So these guys are positioned so that the dragon, if it kills the half-breed champion, there's no way to escape my gaze. If you go sideways, you can't go far enough. If you go backwards, you can't go far enough. Go forwards, you can't get out my arc. So whatever happens, they are charging the dragon next turn. The peasants are advancing on my position, though, which is always ominous. But I do have lots of gargoyles to block in these massive units with. The other knights are just poking onto the hill, looking over this way, so they're a threat. So, the light cavalry there do take the flank charge on the half-breed champion. And let's see what damage is done. 1 damage from shooting onto the half-breeds on the hill. A waver on the half-breed champion, which is okay because he's probably going to counter-charge anyway, so he's got fury, so he's fine there. These grotesques take 4 wounds from the legion, and the Immortal Guard takes 7 from this unit, so they're going to get flanked to death now. And the knights, through the difficult terrain, 9 damage to the grotesques, which is quite good, considering they're going through terrain, and waver them, so I have to counter-charge with fury. Grotesque, the half-breed champion, just takes 2 wounds. So, next turn what we're going to do, it's time to block something with gargoyles. It's time to charge this unit, because they are now a threat. So, what I'm thinking is, Grotesque champion can charge them, because he's in the front and nimble. Gargoyles could charge them as well. These guys are going to charge the dragon. Let's see how it goes. Turn 3. So, double charge the dragon, get it up to 11 damage, and do not manage to kill it, sadly. The little waver thing there, that's for him, not them. That's his wounds. So he's not wavered anymore, obviously, because it's going to be the end of my turn. Grotesque champion and gargoyles into this big block here. So the reason the gargoyles have also gone in is because I want to extend my footprint here. Because there are spaces for enemy units to fit and get into these flanks. So I want to make that space as small as possible. And I don't know if it's going to work, but that's my logic behind it. I don't want there to be space. So the more units I have in this congested area, the less chance there is for enemies to reposition and get into small spaces. 9 damage doesn't kill them, which you wouldn't expect to yet anyway. Grotesques on this legion do some good damage. Flank charge and the Immortal Guard in the front do not quite kill off this horde. So it was a hindered charge in the flank. And over on this side, you can see the gargoyles and the grotesques are all hanging out. So let me show you what was there before. So the knights were hit by gargoyles in the flank, gargoyles and grotesques in the front. So gargoyles doing some good work, killed the knights. Bracky charged from here and killed the peasants. And then the hindered half-breed champion came out of the terrain and charged the war machine and killed that. So, the reason I did it that way around, a hindered half-breed champion is going to have 18 attacks against a war machine hitting on 4s. That's probably going to be enough to kill it. A hindered half-breed champion into the slightly wounded peasants is not going to be enough to kill them. Whereas Bracky charging in without hindrance is much more likely. So, to send the hindered one into the easier target is the gist of it there. So they're now free to go and pursue the rest of the game. And I'm thinking, okay, wiped out this flank, but none of the tokens are actually over here. So I've killed loads of stuff, so I need to get back and support where it actually counts now, because this is where the game's going to be won and lost, in this big brawl here. I've got 3 tokens there, 2 on this legion, 1 on that legion, and then the archers have got 1 out over there, which is on its own mostly. Turn 3 for the enemy. So, knights into the flank of the half-breed champion. So we get the positioning right in a second where they line up. So, here's one thing that we were discussing after the game. My opponent is musing on the fact that he could have actually gone backwards with the dragon. And I agreed, because as it stands right now, the dragon is actually preventing an overrun from the knights into my half-breeds. Which is bad, obviously. But if you move backwards, you might be able to have enough space to do that. So he was saying after the game how he wished he'd moved him backwards. So everyone else is still continuing their combats in the centre. And let's see how the combat goes then. Oh, by the way, you'll notice I have gargoyles all the way behind enemy lines who then get charged by this little fella. Because they are planning, if they don't get murdered, to maybe charge a war machine next turn. So they didn't have anyone to charge, they just kind of swooped over the enemy and landed over there. So, what's this? Dead grotesques that got shot by a war machine. They were on 8 damage already. The war machine was able to see them, slightly, and did enough wounds to kill them. There you go, got them up to 11. As shattering. And they are not the ones with Liliana's Tear. I did forget to use their healing brew in this game, though, and I'm going to forget it in most of the games. Just letting you know. So that unit's dead. But I don't think it's a big deal. I think I've still got the big edge in this game at the moment. Half-breed champion dies, but because the dragon didn't move out of the way, they can't overrun into the half-breeds, which is very good for me. This guy does wound the gargoyles. They don't care. And over here, the legion kills the gargoyles that were in front of them. This guy isn't really facing this way. It's just he's too pokey, so I just turned him that way for convenience. He's actually facing towards this legion. So I don't have any other charge options with him because the heroes are hiding at the back, I think. So, more damage done to the grotesques. The Immortal Guard are killed, and they then pivot to face the half-breeds, but they're nearly dead anyway, this unit, holding 2 tokens. They're going to die soon. A little bit of damage done to this half-breed champion by the cavalry there, the chaff cavalry. And into my turn. So, my turn 4, what am I going to do looking at this picture? Well, I'm going to charge the gargoyles into the war machine. Bracky and the half-breed champion over here are going to make their way towards the battle. Gargoyles can charge something. Gargoyles can get involved in the game a bit. Had the Immortal Guard not died, these gargoyles were eyeing up a flank charge into this legion in the difficult terrain, actually. But because they were able to pivot, they've blocked that now. Into my turn. The half-breeds kill the dragon, then turn away from it, turning their backs to the archers. So they could be charged, but they're okay with that. Grotesque champion back into the legion. Doesn't kill them. Grotesques kill the unit that was here, which was this legion, and then they overrun. You can see the heroes that were hiding there now as well, and the half-breeds kill off the horde that was there as well with the assistance of one of the half-breed champions. So the grotesques have stolen the tokens, and the 2 gargoyle units that helped out with the charge along with this champion, all of them went in, and the 2 gargoyle units steal some tokens because they can just hang out now. They don't need to do much else, allowing the half-breeds to then run away at full speed to deal with other threats. So it's looking very healthy. I'm currently winning. I've got more tokens than the enemy. And I've got more of mine in the enemy half as well. So, turn 4 for the enemy. Some individuals decide they're going to try and kill gargoyles, so I run out of units I can score with, which is a very, very valid strategy on this scenario, since you can only score 1 per unit. So if I only have like 2 scoring units left that can carry tokens, I can only score a maximum of 4 for doubling up by taking them into the enemy half. So if you can kill the gargoyles, that's a good start. This one has Host Shadow Beast at the top as well. So knights in the front, archers in the rear. But we're only fighting over 1 token on this spot here, so I'm not too bothered if they get killed right now. Grotesque Champion is going to get hit back by them. These guys are... Hold on. Let me go back and see that. So you can see the gargoyles killed the war machine. And this guy is... He was the one that was over here. So he steamed up this way, and Bracky went this way. So they're charging that one. This is the one that was previously fighting them, and that joined in the charge down here, just to give you some context there. So, individuals fighting the gargoyles, double charge there. These guys go after the half-breed champ. And the half-breeds obviously get killed by that double crunch, and the knights turn round. The grotesque champion gets wavered, so he has to countercharge them and nothing else. And some damage done to that champion, but not much, so that he's fine. The Host Shadow Beast hero only does 2 wounds to the gargoyles, which is quite funny, and wavers them, so they can't do anything. And the other one doesn't do anything to the gargoyles, so they could fly away. Technically they could fly away, but they have to drop a token to do it. Turn 5 for me. So, the grotesques and the grotesque champion are able to... where's the grotesque champion at this stage? There he is. So they go into the flank there, he goes into the front. Munch on that legion and now face the enemy. They've got 1 token each as well. And if the knights want to charge him, they're going to be hindered. And clear out the centre as well. So let's have a look how the centre was. So these heroes were in there. The half-breeds have now picked up tokens. They've got 2 at the moment. Bracky charges into this guy with the gargoyles down there. And this half-breed champion and the gargoyles from the top double charge this one in a kind of sandwich. So only 4 wounds done there, so disappointing from Bracky, but I think he was hindered by the wall, sadly. And then these ones do 5 to him. And he gets, I think he gets wavered. This half-breed champion wavers the light cavalry at the top. And we can get hit by the knights now, but it's not going to help too much. I've got loads of tokens and it's looking very good. Unless the individuals kill everything, and that one can't because he's wavered. So, into the enemy turn, 2 damage to the gargoyles, not enough to kill them. 8 damage to the grotesque champion, he gets wavered. And the archers are now in my half with a token, but you don't think it's going to be enough at this stage because I've got a lot of tokens in the enemy half right now. Turn 6 for me, so I'm just going to consolidate my position and murder this unit of knights with a double charge from the grotesque champion and the grotesques. But they don't actually kill him. I do kill the individual that was hanging out here, with the half-breeds helping out this time. And they dropped one of the tokens before they charged so that one of the gargoyle units could swoop over their heads and pick it up. So we've got 1 on each unit now. Bracky fails to kill this guy, which is very sad. Now he's going to have 1 more chance to kill the gargoyles. So it's looking very good, but could have done with killing that unit. The knights there with the double grotesque charge. Turn 6 for the enemy. So... he's going after the gargoyles again. The knights are counter-charging into the grotesque champion, I think, because he's more wounded than they are and has a lower nerve. Gargoyles are dead. They drop their tokens. That's sad. And it's kind of expected. If gargoyles get hit once, they usually die, and they survived 2 previous rounds, so they were on borrowed time. Grotesque champion dies, and they steal the token off him. And going into... the nothing. So, yeah, that is the end of the game. So there's no turn 7. And my opponent is scoring 2 here. 1 for this unit, because they're not entirely in my half. So that's a total of 3. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 tokens in the enemy half, which is worth 2 each. Which means I've got 8. So 8 to 3. And some good kill points there as well. There's not much left in the enemy force. There are a couple of heroes and some archers. So a nice big juicy win there. So going into round 5 on 3 big wins and 1 tiny loss. So I've already got my target of 3 wins. Next, we've got the Sylvan Kin. Now, is this a nightmare list? Let's have a look. Infantry Horde with a Brew of Strength. Lots of Pathfinder, which is going to be useful on these terrain-heavy boards. Thunderous Charge and Crushing Strength on a big Infantry Horde. That's quite scary. Hitting on 3s with Elite as well on everybody, so that's quite good. Sylvan Glade Stalkers. Infantry with bows, who are elite as well. They're also not too shabby in combat, but not that amazing. They do have scout though. The Windborn. So, a spellcaster with Wind Blast. So it's Wind Blast that can do damage, so that's quite dangerous. 3 Gur Panther Chaff units. So they're as fast as gargoyles. They have higher nerve, but fewer attacks, and they don't fly. So not as good as gargoyles, but still pretty good. They do have vicious though. 2 units of Silver Breeze Cavalry. One with Fire Oil, which is going to be useful against my entire army. So they've got bows. They're not too terrible at fighting either though. It's 2 units of Stormwind Cavalry. These are the fightier cav. They're a little bit slower, but they hit on 3s and they have Thunderous Charge too. So if we can deny their Thunderous Charge, that would go a long way to stopping them. This unit's got Boots of Striding though, so that's going to be tricky. I think the Wine of Elvenkind makes the other unit nimble, if I'm correct. So lots of nimble cavalry, so the gargoyle's going to have a hard time shutting them down. If the gargoyles get to do anything in this game, because there's a decent amount of shooting. Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3 shooting units on that side. And then spells, so there's the damaging Wind Blast. What are the spells have we got? This one's got a bow, this hero as well, which is 24-inch bow, and a bow on the Elven King, and a bow on King Glorfindel. So we've got quite a lot of bow attacks coming from this faction here. So this could be problematic for gargoyles. So there's King, and yeah, just lots of kings, 3 Elven Kings. Who aren't that expensive, but 7 attacks, speed 7, hitting on 3s and 2s for this one, with the upgrade, with elite, and crushing strength 1, rampage D3 on that one, slayer on D3 on this one. So these guys actually look, for the price, they look very good, don't they? Only about 100 points, 115 points there, 115, 135. That looks amazing. That kind of stat line there. So a half-breed champion that I think is really good. How does it compare? So the half-breed champion has lower nerve, 12, 14. It's 1 faster. It hits on 3s as well, has 1 less attack. Half-breed champion has higher defense. It does not have elites, but it does have vicious. So I would say that is a pretty decent comparison there. So maybe these are about as good as a half-breed champion, these Elven Kings. So, here's the layout. And the scenario is hold the line. So the way this one works, there's a thin strip down the centre of the table, like so, horizontally, like that. At the end of the game, if you're in this middle square, if you control that, you get 4 victory points. If you control one of the edge squares, you get 3 victory points. If you control the other edge square, you also get 3 victory points. So, the trick is, if you hold both flanks, you win. If you hold the centre, one of the flanks, you win. It's pretty simple. If you hold the centre and equal or draw in one of the other sections, you also win. So, I think my opponent has, let's see how much unit strength, a little bit more than me. And there is a reasonable amount of individuals in there though, but slightly more unit strength. So, am I concerned? Slightly, because these 2 archer units have been able to scout straight onto a hill. And my opponent was able to choose sides and was able to pick the side with the hill. So, that's going to make it very difficult for me to hide from those archers, sadly. there's also the fact that against quite a lot of shooting, quite a lot of bows, there's a lot of difficult terrain that's going to slow me down a bit on this side. Now, obviously I could have deployed nothing in the difficult terrain, but eventually you're going to hit something that slows you down. There's a lot of walls around. So there's maybe a couple of small corridors where you could go through unobstructed all the way across the table, but not too many. So I'm a little bit concerned at this stage. But on the other hand, if I get into these wimpy elves, I think I can murder them. Because if we look at their defences, 4, 3, 3, 4, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, and then we've just got a few, just the Stormwind Cavalry that are defence 5. Everything else is 4 or less. So if I hit this stuff, I should kill it. So that's what we've got to hope for. Get through those little plinking bow attacks. Pin them down so they can't escape, because they're obviously fast as well. So let's see how it goes. There's the sneaky little archers scouting onto the hill. And some nice big white dice there in front. Turn 1, and my opponent chooses to go first after winning the roll. And unleashes some shooting fury, some Gur Panthers. Are these ones the Gur Panthers? Let's see. Yeah, wild Gur Panthers, there we go. I haven't just made that name up. So, they are protecting these are the heavy cavalry. So they're hiding behind them so the half-breed champion can't charge them. Then the light missile cavalry popping up there. And a small unit of them here as well. And in the centre, all the bows are about to be unleashed, all the bows in the world. And the slideshow has just stopped, so I'm going to bring up the episode thumbnail for a second and reload that. Because I think the Windows slideshow feature only supports like a piffling amount of like 600 photos. So I'm going to have to restart it from further into the slideshow. So, let's see, where were we? We were already done that game. I think we're at round about the right spot now. So, there we go. What I used to do when I was doing these live streams was actually you could kind of upload all the images into the broadcast software. But when I upgraded to using a better camera, the size of the files was so obscene that it crashed the broadcast software. Because most of these tournament reports are like more than 500 pictures. This one's 812 pictures. So that was a bit tricky. So now I've got 2 monitors, and I've got the broadcast software just capturing one of the monitors, and that monitor is just full of the photos on the Windows photo viewer, and then I can just cycle through them and use just an enlarged standard Windows mouse cursor. So you can see what's going on. And someone did actually comment the other day that their cat really enjoys these videos because the mouse cursor moving around is good cat entertainment, while the humans watching are able to absorb the tactical insight and analysis. So, good to see we've still got steady viewership for this video, by the way, even at past 11 PM. We're into game 5 though, so we're nearly there, only one more after this. So let's see what the shooting does. 3 wounds to the half-breed champion on the hill. 4 wounds to the gargoyles at the back. They got wind blasted, so they're very sad. 8 wounds to these gargoyles, because I can't really hide them, because the units that are shooting them are on a hill, so there's not much I can do. 2 wounds onto the grotesques. 6 wounds onto those grotesques. 12 wounds onto them. Yeah, so all these shooting attacks, I'm thinking, okay, there isn't a lot of piercing going on here. But apparently that doesn't matter, because all you have to do is just be able to roll 5s or 6s, and you can do loads of damage. And 3 onto that one. Up to 8 onto that one. So this is just massive damage from puny bows. And there's a grotesque horde dead in turn 1. And 2 units of gargoyles. And the other one heavily damaged. So this is way more of a serious gun line than I was anticipating at the start. And I don't know exactly how to deal with that now. Because I'm down 2 chaff units and 1 of my heavy hitters. So I'm still confident in the half-breed champions. If they get in there, I think they can mess up these elves. But I don't want to be taking too many more turns of that shooting, because that was devastating. And I think I'm right in thinking there's very little piercing going on there. So just roll high enough and you can chew through the high defences, I think is the motto there. Okay, so my turn. Grotesque Champion moves up into the crevice and threatens the enemy, hoping something charges him so that he can either charge them or nimble charge around them to hit something he really wants to fight. Gargoyles landing in front of the missile cavalry, Half-Breed Champion out in the open as bait. Grotesques up to the wall, so anything attacking them would get hindered because there's no Strider. There may be I think the boots of striding maybe are in there, but there's mostly just Pathfinder. The Half-Breed Champion on the hill is able to turn around on the spot and see this light cavalry, which is the only charge that I was offered. That's the one I've taken. It's hindered though. 4 wounds, but not enough to kill them, which is sad. And I've sent out all my Half-Breed Champions all the way across the table with Bracky, because that shooting has spooked me now. I do not want to take another round of that, so I'm getting right up in their faces, saying, you charge me, or you have one go at shooting at my individuals, or they kill you, is what I'm threatening here. So let's see what the Sylvan Kin can do about it. Also, those gargoyles are staying hidden now. Turn 2 for the enemy. So the Gur Panthers move to a flanking position round the back, as do the heavy hitting cavalry. So this is on the right hand side. Then we've got one of the Elven Kings helps out the cavalry there against the Half-Breed Champion. And speed 7 on an infantry unit is really good. And it's easy to underestimate how far they can move because of that. Gur Panthers into the flank of the Gargoyles, which is here. They can just about see them. And everyone else is actually backing off so they can shoot for longer, which is probably a good idea. Gur Panthers hanging out on the hill. But then they decide not to do that. The old Gur Panthers, they charge into the Half-Breeds instead, because they couldn't really block off the Half-Breed Champions. So there are elves in the back lines now, so it's not looking good, but I am going to be able to charge a lot of units next turn. So 3 damage done to that one, 4 damage done to that one, but no waivers, that's good. Grotesque Champion takes some wounds, but not wavered, that's all good. This Half-Breed Champion dies, which is very sad. I was hoping to live and then charge into one of these cavalry units to either stop them shooting or take away their Thunderous. But alas. So, Gargoyles killed by the Gur Panthers. What am I going to do now? Well, the Grotesque Champion is going to be able to charge this cavalry because he's nimble, so he can go pivot, zoop, touch the corner, and then be in the front. He can charge something. Bracky can charge something. He can charge something. I need to protect this unit, so this Half-Breed Champion is quite likely having to charge this cavalry unit. And the Gargoyles are going to have to make their way in this direction, possibly as well. Do some blocking up. So turn 2 for me. Grotesque Champ goes into the light missile cavalry. 4 wounds. Half-Breed Champion goes in there, regenerates some wounds, does 5. So that's good. We've got them locked down. The Grotesques kill the Gur Panthers. And they just pivot around a bit. The Half-Breeds and the Immortal Guard. So what was going on here? So they just move up, essentially. And on this side, Half-Breed Champion from up here into the flank. Bracky decides I'm going to charge this Elven King because that thing's annoying and it's really fast. I was also under the impression that it had Duelist, which is apparently an error in the app that allows you to put Duelist on the units when they don't actually have it. So the reason I wanted to kill it now, or strike first, was because it's got Duelist, so I want to try and one-shot it and stop it just mopping up all my heroes. But apparently it doesn't have Duelist, it was just a mistake on the app. So 2 damage on there, got rid of their Thunderous Charge. And put the Gargoyles in front of them just to be mildly annoying. We'll see if that works. Over here, I've not done anything to those units. So, now then, you might think my Grotesques look incredibly safe here. However, apparently, that distance there is 12 inches or less. Now, to my naked eye, it didn't look that way, so I didn't bother measuring it to check it or pivoting to try and get out of their charge distance, because I just thought, that's miles away, how are they possibly going to make it? But apparently, they're in range, and my opponent just went boop, boop, in they go, they're going to fight you. Okay, probably should check the range on that. Because it does look like a long way to the naked eye. So I probably could have avoided it with a little bit of a different pivot, but just didn't think that was going to be a problem. Because it just looked too far to my naked eyeballs. So, turn 3. The cavalry, the heavy cavalry, they've lost their Thunderous, so into the half-breeds. They shouldn't kill them in one round without their Thunderous charge. So that should be okay. The light cavalry are going to maybe shoot the gargoyles to death. The Elven King is going to strike back at Bracky. And another Elven King joins in as well. So to make a Bracky sandwich. And there's that giant horde into the grotesques. And these 2 units are counter-charging. So, the gargoyles take some shooting damage and die. The half-breed champion takes a tiny amount of shooting damage from Wind Blast, I think, and gets wavered so he can't charge anyone next turn, so that's a bit of a disaster. The Immortal Guard takes some wounds as well. Bracky takes 4 wounds, and then takes another few, and dies. 9 wounds from 2 Elven Kings. So, 2 of them hitting on 3s, so 14 attacks total, 3s with elite. So you're going to get a lot of hits. I think they're only crushed 1 though, so they're wounding on 4s. So that is a lot of wounds. And then it's a decent nerve roll twice to get rid of him as well. So, yeah, there you go. Can't argue with that. Dead. 8 damage onto the half-breeds. And over here, the grotesques are absolutely massacred by this infantry unit that they didn't perceive as a threat. So there you go. So at this stage, it's essentially game over, because they've got so little left, especially when you see this happening, and this happening. Okay. So, I was pretty confident that these 2 units would win the grind here. Actually, maybe not this one, because they're heavy cavalry. But, I've got rid of their Thunderous Charge. They don't have any crushing. So they're wounding me on 5s. And they did 6 wounds. Which isn't totally wild, because these guys don't have that high a nerve. But these guys, getting the Grotesque Champion, they do 8 wounds to him at defense 5. So they are just having a great time. So, yeah, it's looking like I'm going to get tabled very soon. I'm hitting things and not killing them, and then being hit back by units that are diminished in some way, and being one-shot. So that's not the dream scenario, is it, for you? So, yeah, the old lockdown strategy isn't locking things down, it's just getting my units killed. So there's not a lot left, so I'm just going to try and kill as much as possible now and secure some points before getting tabled. So, turn 3. Let's see. Oh, there's a little hero down there. So I countercharge him, this Elven King. Don't kill him, because I only roll 4 on the nerve check. I double one the heavy cavalry with the half-breeds. And there you go. That's it for the turn. So I think we're about to have the end of the game now, because all these units could well die. Here we go. Going in. Charging into them, into the flank. Shooting the Immortal Guard. Triple charging the half-breed champion. Double charging the half-breeds. And it's going to be dead. 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 So everything's dead. And I killed some Gur Panthers. So, where did that go horribly wrong? Now, you can't just entirely blame dice rolls. There's also underestimating certain enemy units, probably. Because even if they're rolling above average, these units, then still, they've got the stats that actually do make them dangerous. The elite and a good hit roll means you're going to get a lot of hits. And relying on the wounds not being successful, that's not a guarantee. If somebody rolls slightly hot, then you have to be prepared for that eventuality. So, what could I have done differently in this game? Well, obviously the grotesques shouldn't have been charged by that unit. Because I could have just not used my eyeball and got some kind of tape measure out to make sure they were outside of the charge range of that unit. That would have been a very easy thing to prevent. And that would have kept them alive for a turn. And it would be significant as well, because I would have had another unit in this fight with these units. I don't think you can really account for them murdering the grotesque champion, this light missile cavalry, murdering him in combat by doing 8 wounds to him. So I'll put that one down as an anomaly. But in general, I think it's a tricky matchup. They think this is a very strong list. The shooting doesn't look good on paper, but in practice, there's all these dice coming at you with elite. And they all seem to be hitting, and then they do a lot of wounds as well. So it was just very successful shooting attacks in this game. And it's very tricky. You can't pin down these units very easily. There's lots of nimble, lots of speed, which are things my army doesn't like, because the gargoyles can't block you. The gargoyles can't also block you because they can't go out on the front lines because they get shot to death. Nuke man, losing a whole combat brick turn 1 from shooting. Yes, that as well. So all those shooting attacks without piercing, I was fairly confident they wouldn't kill anything early on, but they murdered the entire grotesque horde turn 1. So that wasn't very nice. So I lost the grotesques and 2 units of gargoyles before moving. So a lot of things went badly in that game. And could have done a couple of things differently. I think in general, I think the idea that my heroes are capable of dealing with some of those enemy units, I don't know if that was too wild an idea. It obviously didn't work out, and I didn't get much chance to multi-charge enemy units because they're very fast and don't need to be close to me. But what would I do differently facing this exact list again? I would set up in a way that I can advance faster, mostly. Now that I've seen what those shooting units can do, I would want to get to them much quicker. I would stick some units out on the flank to prevent a flanking force from coming round, but keeping them out of sight, like maybe behind this hill. Just leave some half-breed champions there that can't be seen, so if the enemies start to get up onto the hill or come down this way, I can then charge them. Just use them purely defensively to lock down this flank without committing to anything. And then just advance on the enemy as fast as possible. But yeah, it's very tricky. This is a good list, and it performed very well here. And it's not going to be too much of a spoiler to reveal that the player who was piloting this list actually finished second at the event, out of 196 players. So, a very successful outing for this Sylvan Kin list. Okay, so that's a bit of a crash back down to earth, after 3 enormous wins, 1 tiny loss, and then this. Into round 6 against the vile forces of the undead. So we've got 3 zombie regiments, 3 troops of wraiths, a horde of werewolves with the Brew of Strength, giving them Crushing Strength 2. And whenever I see something fast with Nimble, Crushing Strength instead of Thunderous Charge, that is the kind of unit my list can struggle with, because you can't lock them down easily with the Nimble, so they can just dance around gargoyles potentially, and hitting them first doesn't do much because you don't get rid of their Thunderous because they have Crushing instead. So potentially that's a difficult unit to deal with in this matchup. The Flyers are obviously good as well because I can't box them in very easily. 3 hordes of wights who are even more powerful Flyers. A lower defense than the Wraiths, but they hit a lot harder. A hit on 3s with 18 attacks, Crushing Strength 2. So the issue with these 2 units, the Wraiths and the Wights, is that they are shambling though. So while you do have to watch out for the long surges, you don't have to be concerned about them moving at the double over the top of your forces. Because they're only speed 7 with their fly, so they're not going very far, so they're not too manoeuvrable. You do have to watch out for the surges and the charges, obviously, though. Death Pack, Chaff unit, 75 points. Not much to say about that. Necromancer with Inspiring Talisman, Surge, and Weakness. So Weakness may be a good choice here because there are some high defense units I'm going to be fighting. Surge, obviously useful for the shambling units. I can't afford to leave any flank options for them. Morgoth the Faceless, who is a spellcaster who can move 14, fly, and then cast 2 spells a turn. So he's got Banechant, Drain Life 7, which is dangerous, Mind Fog, and Surge. So Mind Fog is a pretty good gargoyle killer. If you can just throw a bit of Mind Fog onto a gargoyles from long range, you can potentially get rid of them straight away. Surge 10 as well, so lots of Surge from Morgoth, and a Vampire Lord on Undead Dragon, so another unit that's quite tricky to deal with for my list. So it depends how aggressive the dragon is, and what it forces me into defensively. But a half-breed champion wouldn't like its chances in a duel against a dragon. There's Icy Breath on it as well. Very fast, very tall, very hard to block. And during the previous round, by the way, I was presented with this little pin. So 196 players, and the judges who were looking for their favourite painted armies wandered around, and they picked out their favourite 30, or 30 that they thought showed some outstanding hobby prowess, and gave out these little pins. So I was very pleased to get one of those. I think that's pretty good going out of 196 players to get the little pin, so that's really good. And there were, I think it was 5 players got the Judge's Choice Best Army Award. So I wasn't one of those, but I was never going to be anyway, because there's some obscene levels of hobby quality there. There was some like top-notch, professional level paint jobs on some of the armies that we looked at before. The Green Dwarves in particular were the one that stood out to me. I think that player won Best Unit for one of his units, so that wasn't a surprise at all. So, very high standard of hobby, so very pleased to win a little award there. So that's going on my awards shelf. And we are playing... what's the name of this one again? It is... Is this the standard pillage? I think it may well be. That's where you've got objectives all over the table. You place them down, take it in turns to put the objectives down, and then you stand on them at the end of the game to score points. Simple. Now, I don't think this really suits my army, because there's going to be 7 spots on the table to cover. How many scoring units have I actually got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if I lose 3 units, at that point I can no longer contest all the objectives. So, because I've got a lot of points in individuals, and I have some expensive units, the Grotesques and the Half-Breeds and the Grotesque Champion are very expensive. Gargoyles are easy to kill. So, it could be a tricky scenario. In terms of the enemy list, there's flying, which is going to prevent me locking a lot of it down, but it's slow flying counterpoint, which means that it's not going to be able to maneuver very well if I am trying to lock it down. Other counterpoint, they can be surged, and there's 16 surge in the list. So potentially, on average, you're going to get an 8-inch surge out of them, so you can't afford to give them any flanks. So I'm going to have to try and stay quite compact. We've got a big piece of impassable terrain here, so if I can get into a fight there and a fight here, and maybe avoid being flanked that way by using this piece of terrain, advancing on the enemy. You can see where the objectives are. There's one here, here, and here, and here. So there's 4 on this side of the table there, and 1 kind of in the middle. And then there's some on the other side as well. But there's more on this side, so I won the roll-off and picked this side because that's where the objectives were. And I didn't want just zombies being able to stand on them for the whole game without me getting to them. Although I wouldn't be worried about that, actually, because I think a half-breed champion could sneak through and take out some zombies over a few turns. So, I've got Bracky on the left flank. There is the vampire on dragon, very scary. Werewolves. So these are the 2 of the units that I'm most worried about, and there's a death pack to shield them as well. There are the wights, who are like fallen Elohai, it looks like, and the wraiths are behind them. And just some zombies hanging back where the objectives are, just ready to hang out. This one isn't on an objective, I don't think. And there's the Necromancer. And there's Morgoth the Faceless, with the authentic Morgoth model, which is very cool. So my opponent, let's see. I think my opponent wins the roll and lets me go first, with the idea that gargoyles can potentially leap onto objectives in the last round. You don't want that. So you don't want gargoyles going last on a mission like this. So I am given the first turn. I'm pushing everything up, staying out of charge range though. I've put one half-breed champion behind the piece of terrain. I'm offering up a charge for the wraiths. So I don't think it's going to be taken because they wouldn't one-shot him probably, and then they'd get flank charged and killed. So while it is a trap, it's too obvious, but it's also a good staging post for him, so it doesn't matter if the trap isn't sprung. On this side, the half-breed champion is just going around the difficult terrain so he can keep up some speed. And he's going to go and try and kill some zombies probably, unless some enemies come over here. Otherwise, he's happy to fight the zombies, kill them, and then join in the game again, because it'll stop them just marching onto an objective, like down here. They can just walk slowly towards it for the whole game. And I don't have the resources to go and deal with zombies outside of him. Other than that, moving up, staying out of charge range of all the flyers. So let's see how aggressive the enemy are in turn 1. Well, the zombies actually charge the half-breed champion, which I'm not mega surprised about, because if they have a good roll, they could maybe waver him and stop him going anywhere else. I think I'm going to win eventually there, probably. The Death Pack are shielding the dragon, which is a good idea. So if you've got a screen for one of your units and you're up flush against them, and they are wider than you, obviously you can't be charged. So it's a good little shield to get the dragon into the game. And that is something you do not want flanking you, so I'm going to have to do something about that. I've got Bracky over here, so we'll see what I've got in store. So the Wraiths are staying out of charge range of the Grotesques. Now, there's something to talk about when... Okay, yeah, so what we're seeing here, this is something I actually don't see much in Kings of War anymore, but it's a classic Kings of War layout. I don't know why it doesn't come up in games more, actually. But for some reason you don't. You used to see a lot of this, like the V shape with 2 units, or more. So obviously you can charge into it, but you've got limited space to rotate if you do kill the unit. If you don't, you get flanked by the other unit, and if you do kill them, you still get hit by the other unit. So they're just supporting each other, and they're also cramping the space, so you've got less maneuverability when you do get in there, if you do manage to kill one of them. So, I don't know, it's just struck me during this game as I was playing it. I thought, wait a minute, you don't see that very often anymore, actually. Just 2 units in a little V shape. It's very simple, but you don't see it a lot now. If anyone's got any thoughts on that, I'd be interested to hear. Anyone who plays a lot of Kings of War and doesn't see the little V shape very often. So, perhaps it's because you are possibly presenting flanks to units like here. And there's a lot of speed and flyers out there now, so maybe that's why you don't see it so much. That's the only thing I can think of. Because, yeah, it just grabbed me immediately, like, wait a minute, that's the classic old little V there, the little defensive V of 2 units, which I don't see very often. So I thought that was interesting, actually. Okay, so, I've got to do something about the dragon. The charges that have been left available to me. The half-breed champions can be charging things next turn. And the Wraiths and the Whites have left the charge open there from the half-breeds on the hill, which is very dangerous, actually, because they are now Crush 1, Thunderous 2 off the hill with Elite and Vicious, this unit. So that is actually a very scary charge that's been left open. So, the Grotesques get weakened, which is... Where's Morgoth hiding? Can't see him, but there he is. So he's weakened some of the Grotesques. And he also killed some gargoyles, I think. Where were they? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, he kills a unit of gargoyles with Mind Fog. So that's sad. Okay, so let's do this. Turn 2. So we're going to have that charge there. The half-breed champions are going to start their task of locking down enemy units. And we're going to very carefully decide who else to attack. Because you don't want to get flanked by anything. One option I do have is the half-breed champion into the flank of the wraiths, the grotesque champion into the front of the wraiths. That double charge could conceivably kill them. It's not guaranteed because they're defense 6. So, it's possible though. If I don't kill them, worst case scenario, I then lose these 2 units to countercharging, but that means I've got my big unit of grotesques ready to strike after that. And I've got my champions, and I've got the Immortal Guard coming in, and gargoyles. Is that the end of the world? I would probably be down on numbers of serious fighting units in the middle if that happened, but they could kill him. They could kill the wraiths. Turn 2. So the grotesques are turning round because they can't escape from the dragon's line of sight. Bracky, who is... let's see, let's go back. Bracky is here. The werewolves are on a hill, so he can see them. Over that sort of line there, as you can see over the death pack. So Bracky and the gargoyles both charge the werewolves on the hill. And I'm thinking, I'm going to be out of line of sight of the dragon. He's not shambling, so he's not going to get surged onto me. And the gargoyles are protecting my flank from any of these things that might come this way. So I quite like that as an option. So they both go in there and get up to 6 damage. And I like these little playing cards as damage counters, actually, because it's very easy to read, especially on photos. It's nice and clear. Unless I take the picture with a sword over the number, but I think that's a 2. So we've got 1 half-breed champion into wraiths there for 2 damage, and the half-breeds charge down off the hill and one-shot the whites. So yeah, that was a very good charge in there, and my opponent did express regret, actually, at leaving that charge open. So that was quite a devastating blow. And over on this side, so the grotesque champion and the half-breed champion do a really good job and kill the wraiths there entirely, and these wraiths get charged by a half-breed champion as well, but I don't do any damage, so that one can fly still. So this was a tricky situation though, because the grotesque had to turn round to stop being flanked by these 2 units. The half-breed champion tried to overrun, the idea being that I overrun like 3 inches to here, and it stops the whites from going sideways and then surging into the flank of the grotesque champion. However, he only overran 1 inch, so he stops there. So that's not stopping that. So they can now sidestep and then get surged into his flank, which is quite dangerous. Okay, so I'm ignoring the zombies out there now. The Immortal Guard are just hanging out in the middle. When it comes to objectives, by the way, let's see. So I've got some gargoyles hanging back. I've got half-breeds on the hill. I've got grotesques here. There's a lot of objectives in the back, but I've got gargoyles and I've got cavalry that are all fast, so they can potentially get back there if needed. But at the moment, I'm worried about this dragon, so I need everything looking that way. Turn 2 for the enemy. So zombies are slowly getting back into the action now, making their way through the swamp. And what my opponent chooses to do here, oops, just whacked the desk a bit there, hope that wasn't too loud, decides to, instead of go for the grotesque champion, wants to surge into the half-breed champion first, kill that, and then overrun into the grotesque champion. So, you can potentially get 2 for 1, but of course that one is an individual, so you won't get extra attacks against him. And I think they would be hindered by the terrain as well. So it's not a guarantee that they chew through him and then get into the grotesque champion. So it's a risk trying to get him first, but if it pays off, you get 2 for 1, so it's a really good deal. The wraiths decide, because they didn't get wounded, they're just going to charge the gargoyles and chaff up the grotesques for a turn. And then the other whites can go for this half-breed champion. Over on this side, the zombies charge into the gargoyles. The werewolves countercharge Bracky. And the death pack charge into the grotesques here. And the dragon decides, you know what? I don't like this. This is just death. Whatever I do here, the death pack dies. I then charge the grotesques, whatever. Not going to kill them, then get hit by everything and die. So I'm going to go that way instead. So the dragon is eyeing up some Icy Breath, Vampiric Dragon Breath into the half-breeds here. And also, if these whites can overrun the champion, they could potentially get into them as well. So, could be scary there. 4 damage, not enough. 3 breath damage. So, I think that is actually maybe from Drain Life. So, maybe he could die. Whites get surged into the half-breed champ. And now it's time for combat. So, up to 6 wounds on him. Doesn't kill him. So, that's great. 5 wounds onto this one. And 6 wounds onto the gargoyles. Kills the gargoyles. And then spins round a bit into an annoying position. Wavers this one with the whites there. Wavers the gargoyles with the zombies. And does some wounds to Bracky, but not much. And then, well, I took a picture of the double one, but obviously not a real double one, because the death pack only did 1 wound. But just for record-keeping purposes, there is a double one there. So, that gamble there from the whites didn't pay off because the half-breed champion stood up to their attacks and is not dead. So the grotesque champion can now go and hit something, including whites in the flank. So that's what he's going to do. Turn 3. So whites in the flank, half-breed champion countercharging with Fury and Immortal Guard into the front, kills the whites. Half-breed champion into the other whites to stop them flying. Grotesques into the wraiths there. On this side, half-breed champ into the vampire, half-breeds into the wraiths, Bracky back into the werewolves, and I think he actually wavers the werewolves this time, so that's good. They don't have fury. The gargoyles can't do anything. These gargoyles are just hiding at the back. They're scared of Morgoth using Mind Fog on them, because that could just kill them. And it's looking pretty healthy at the moment. Killed quite a lot of units. Killed a fair few big hitter units. What is a concern now? So, the dragon, because I didn't kill the wraiths, I couldn't turn around to face him. So if the dragon kills this heavily wounded half-breed champion, and then overruns into the half-breeds, he would have a flank on them. So that's dangerous. But is it that scary? Because I've got this platform of doom here. I've got half-breeds on a hill. I've got grotesques there as well. And I don't think this dragon can escape them. So he could kill a unit, but they need to have to get charged by at least one of them. So, let's see. Turn 3 for the undead. So zombies into the grotesque champion on the right flank. Other zombies into these grotesques. So zombie action going on. The whites go back into the half-breed champion who prevented them flying last turn. They're on 3 wounds up there. Morgoth the Faceless jumps over and starts throwing his spells around and does some damage to the half-breeds on the hill. The Vampire and Dragon kills the half-breed champion, needs to overrun 2 inches to make it to the half-breeds, rolls a 1. So, very sad times, and it has to be said in this game, the undead attack rolls are very poor. So as good as the Sylvankin attack rolls were in the last game, the undead attack rolls have been as poor in this game, I would say. Very poor indeed. So a few damage to the half-breeds, but not much from the wraiths. The gargoyles are dead at the second attempt from the zombies. The werewolves couldn't do anything this turn because they were wavered. And now, the zombies did overrun. So that presents me with the possibility of not being able to charge the dragon now, because the gap isn't big enough, because they're slightly ahead of the dragon. Which means I can't do plan A. Plan A was going to be grotesques into the flank of the dragon, half-breeds off the hill into Morgoth. That would have been great. Could maybe get rid of Morgoth in one shot off the hill with the extra Thunderous. And the grotesques in the flank would certainly be enough to have a good chance of killing the dragon. However, because of the zombies, only the half-breeds will actually fit into the gap now. The grotesques are too wide to fit there. And Morgoth is out of their charge arc, so I'm going to have to leave Morgoth alone for the turn if I want to kill the dragon. So, the half-breed champion is killed by the whites over here. But I've got another one, don't worry. I've also got the grotesque champ as well. And the zombies don't do much down here. So, on to my turn 4, and the grotesque champion nimble charges into the whites and we're slowly racking up damage on them. The half-breed champion gets into these zombies. The grotesques here finish off the other zombies. Over on the left, well, you'll notice there aren't a lot of enemies here. Werewolves killed by Bracky, and let me show you who else was there. So the dragon and the zombies. The zombies get killed by the grotesques. The half-breeds in the flank of the dragon kills that, and also killed the wraiths with these ones. So totally taken out this flank, and it's tough to see a way back for the undead from here. It's Morgoth, some zombies, a necromancer, and one unit of damaged wights. So this is looking really tough for the undead. I'm also hiding the gargoyles from Morgoth still. On the other hand, the scenario does mean that I have to be on these objectives that I'm currently not next to. So I'm going to have to start making my way towards those now. 2 turns to do it, probably. 2 turns and undead turn. So, zombies try and do some work. The wight's going to try and kill the grotesque champion. And the zombies do waver this guy. And the grotesque champion is dead. So, the grotesques are going to go in to try and avenge him next go. And not much going on over there because there's no undead stuff there. My turn 5. So, grotesques into the wights, do a load of damage to them, but can't quite finish them off. Can't quite finish off the zombies either. The Immortal Guard have turned around and they're just heading towards one of the objectives. All my other units split out to face objectives as well. So these guys are going off for the one down in the bottom left. The grotesques are just hanging out on this one. They're going to stay there. And the half-breeds are turning that way, ready to get involved in the game again. Immortal Guard heading for this one. So I've got one more turn at least. That's enough time for them to get on there. Enough time for the gargoyles to pivot onto this one. And if there's a turn 7, the half-breeds will be able to reach this objective as well, but not on turn 6. So, turn 5 for the undead. Zombies back in. Wights back in. Let's see if they can do some killing. Wavered him again. Wavered the grotesques, which means, obviously, they can still countercharge. And even the necromancer went in as well with his 1 attack. And if he'd actually wounded with his extra attack, he would have killed the unit, because the nerve roll was 1 off killing them. So, my turn 6. Pivot onto the objective. Move towards the objective, but it's in difficult terrain, so they need a turn 7 to reach it. Hanging out on the objective for the grotesques. Immortal Guard just consolidating their position on that one. Grotesques kill the wights and then go backwards to this objective. The half-breeds that were over on the left have now swarmed all the way down here, ready to get into the action. And yeah, we'll see if there's a turn 7 then, because at the moment, obviously, I'm winning. And there will be a turn 7. So Morgoth is going to try and kill a unit. The zombies are going to have to try and overrun through the half-breed champion and get to the half-breed cavalry. They do kill him, and then they roll a 1 on the overrun. So you've got a feel for the undead here. 2 overruns in this game, requiring 2 inches, and rolls 1 on both of them. Wow, wow, wow. And, yep, looking very good. In my turn, just move on to all the objectives in the world, and that's it. So it's Morgoth and a necromancer left. Everyone else is dead. So that's pretty good, I would say. Controlling all but 1 objective. This is the only one I'm not on. So very pleased with that. Obviously helped by the undead's inability to roll to hit very well. But that's going to happen sometimes. It is a dice game after all. So the wild differences in terms of my personal luck between the previous game and this one. Obviously, there was a lot of damage dished out in game 5, and then in this one, the enemy were just not doing the damage that they needed. But it is a dice game, so it does happen. And you like to think that eventually it evens out for everybody over time. And if you keep putting yourself in the good positions, then eventually you'll have a good one. So, what do we think of this Abyssal Dwarf list then? Because I've been running it for almost a year now. I was running it before it was cool though. I was using this list when the grotesques and half-breeds were still far worse than they are now. The half-breeds gained a point of nerve after I built and painted the list. Grotesques gained 1,000,000 special rules. The Grotesque Champion gained 1,000,000 special rules and became more like a mini dragon rather than like a troll bruiser, which is kind of the level he was at before. So they've really improved. What else? The Immortal Guard, they've had their little upgrade for a while, so they're still good. But yeah, the non-golem list, it's so fun. In some of these games, every single unit in my army was in combat in turn 2. Including gargoyles. So it's just a lot of fun getting everything into combat, getting stuck in. No shooting at all, so it's nice and quick to play. No shooting, no magic spells to worry about. Just get your angles right, get your half-breed champions into the gaps, use your gargoyles at the right time, don't just throw them away willy-nilly. Try and block multiple units at once with them so you can just feed them one gargoyle unit a turn. And then let the big hitter units do the work, grotesques and half-breeds. Particularly the half-breed unit with elite on it were definitely some of the big killers in this event. Apart from the one game against Sylvan Kin, I was averaging killing about 2,000 points a game out of 2,300, which is ridiculously good, and I'm including the other game I lost in that as well. And then the game against the Sylvan Kin obviously just went very badly. Very badly indeed. So, I'm going to load up the Mantic app now and see if the results have gone up there yet. Oh, yes they have. So I can see where I finished. Let's do some scrolling. I don't want to have to scroll too far to find my name. There we go. So I finished 40th out of 196 with 4 wins and 2 losses. And if we look at the kill points, okay, so the player who won the tournament with 6 wins killed 10,450 points. I killed 10,115 points. So I killed only a few hundred points less than the person who won the tournament and won every single game. So my list was incredibly killy. And yeah, very successful. So I'll look for the other players that I played against and see where they finished. So obviously the Sylvankin player that I lost to finished 2nd. Let's see, the Goblins that I lost to, where did that player finish? 42nd, so below me actually. And that was because my army was so killy and all my wins were so big and decisive. Let's see if I can find anyone else I played against browsing down here. I don't think everyone has their real name on here, so it's difficult to spot who's who sometimes. So, still scrolling. Still scrolling. There are 196 names here, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to spot everybody. And I'm probably just going to give up. So I'll tell you which factions won anyway. So, Dwarves finished 1st, Sylvankin 2nd, Northern Alliance 3rd, Undead 4th, Twilightkin 5th, Basileans 6th, and then Trident Realms, Empire of Dust, Basileans, Undead, Halflings 11th, Northern Alliance, Empire of Dust, Ogres, Ratkin, Undead, Order of the Brother Mark, Ogres, Elves, Salamanders, Abyssal Dwarfs, Northern Alliance, League of Rordia, Twilightkin, Undead, Empire of Dust, Dwarves, Ogres, Halflings, Salamanders, Ogres, Forces of the Abyss, Ogres, Abyssal Dwarves, Twilightkin, Ogres, Empire of Dust, and then my Abyssal Dwarves. So I think the player who's probably winning best in race for Abyssal Dwarves finished 36th. I was 40th. We both won 4 and lost 2. I had way more kill points, but obviously that's not the only thing that's judged. It's the kill. It's not just how much you've killed, it's how much of your army was killed as well. And how much your margin of victory was in the scenarios also. And I did have that one loss where I didn't score anything, so that would have knocked me down a little bit. I'm going to see which factions finished at the bottom now. So we've got some Goblins, we've got some Kingdoms of Men, we've got some Forces of the Abyss, we've got some Basileans. I think some people had to pull out of day 2 by the looks of this, because not everyone's got 6 games. That's sad. We've got some Forces of the Abyss and Ogres down at the bottom. And it's just a nice mix of all the factions. That's what we like to see. So I'm very happy with my little pin for outstanding hobby. And I'll take 40th out of 196. That sounds pretty good to me. 4 wins. 1 more than I was aiming for. And I also played against, of my 6 opponents, I'd never even met 4 of them before in my life. So that's exciting, playing against some new players. Lots of international players came in. I played against 1 from Norway. I didn't get to play against any of the Spanish or French or Polish or German players. There was at least 1 person from Argentina that I didn't play against either. So, yeah, there was a lot of the top players from other countries came in for this event, and I managed to dodge, obviously, most of them. But with 196 players, it's very possible that you go through the whole weekend. Somebody could go through it and not play any of the recognised top world players, and somebody could go through the weekend playing 3 or 4 of them. So, I think at the end of the event, though, we did only have 1 player who won all 6 games. So I think statistically, with that many players, you can end up with at least a couple of players on full wins at the end, but we only ended up with 1. So that's really good and decisive, actually. It's good to see that. Just the person who won all 6 games wins the event. That's how it should be. And then after that, we've got quite a lot of 5 and 1s. And yeah, very happy with that event. It was a lot of fun. The venue was really good, actually. It was at Nottingham High School. And even though the space looked smaller than the venue last year, we seemed to have more space, which is really weird. I don't know how that works exactly. Maybe the tables were just arranged more efficiently. But we had a little side table between all the tables as well, which was a luxury. We had 2 separate rooms, and we had good air circulation throughout, so it wasn't too hot. Wasn't too cold either when the winds were picking up. So it was just nice. Nice temperature, nice atmos, nice facilities. And I think they're going to try and run it there again next year. With it being a school, I imagine that if the capacity goes even higher, they would have other halls and other rooms on their premises that they could potentially rent out as well. So yeah, that might be their future venue. It was very good though. Maybe the most fun I've had at Clash of Kings, and I went into this event with no pressure because I haven't been playing that much Kings of War. I've played 2 games in the last 4 or 5 months, I think. But I'm very familiar with this list. I've been running it all year, variations of it, so I know my stats. And I know the general game plan on how to shut down the enemy with it. And what did I call it? Knockdown and lockdown. There you go. So all your units are either knocking something down or locking something down. So you've got loads of quite fast hard hitters, and then you've also got loads of chaff units who are blocking up the enemy that you don't want to fight yet. Sacrificing themselves sparingly. Let's see. Oh, we've got Annie in the chat, Bad Squiddo, who is currently in Belgium right now for some kind of event, frolicking around there across Europe and leaving me in charge of the guinea pigs. And can I do a shout out? Yes. Let's do a shout out to Ryan and Tara, who are apparently massive fans. Now, they better be massive fans of mine and not yours, and you're not just telling me to shout out your fans on my live stream. So, anyone who wants to get a comment in, you better do it now, before I wrap this one up, because we're just over 3 hours now, and it's past midnight, which is fine, because to get up in the morning for work, I need to sleep by about 1, so it's working out nicely. It also means I don't have to do this mega live stream after work on Monday either, so I've got a couple of days to relax. I don't know if there's going to be any battle reports this week for any other game systems, because it's going to be my birthday on Thursday, and then I'm going to watch some football at the weekend, so I'm going to be travelling around the country a bit later this week. So I'll try and get some kind of video up probably. I still need to do one on pinning metal models, actually. Just need to do the voiceover for that video. So hopefully people find that entertaining, and hopefully my safety tips are actually not contradictory and they don't lead to people like losing an eye from 1mm drill bit snapping, which is very possible that you could do. So the only way you can avoid that is if you watch the video. There you go. So thanks to the consistent number of people we've had in here, we're up to 16 at the moment, which is not bad for such a ridiculously late night stream straight after a tournament, because I'm sure the players of the event, quite a high percentage of them I imagine, would be interested in watching a live stream about games for the same event, especially if they played against me, and most of them won't be in a position to be watching right now, I imagine, because they're probably travelling or sleeping. So don't forget to like the video and subscribe, obviously, and all that stuff. There's links in the description for the various social media shenanigans, Twitter, Discord, Facebook, and all that good stuff. And obviously, if you want non-stop flow of content for all the different game systems that I play, and hopefully there will be more Kings of War. There's another event coming up in a month or two as well. I'll try and play some games in the meantime. Loads of battle reports coming, just non-stop wargaming action. Then why not pledge your entire life savings on the Patreon or the PayPal link down there as well. And if you can't afford your entire life savings because you have to spend it on frivolous activities like, let's say, rent and clothing and food and other so-called essentials, then you could just pledge like a percentage of the life savings would also be acceptable. And that'll pretty much allow me to buy tickets for more events. Ooh, before I go, let's just shout out the goodie bag from Clash of Kings. So it came with a hat, a cap, nice stylish black cap with the Clash of Kings symbol on it. So I was wearing that backwards all weekend, like the cool dude that I am. And I'm sure the people who are cool nowadays definitely use that phrase. So that was very nice. It came with some lovely purple dice as well. So I've now got 14 different sets of nerve dice that I use, and some of them still double one, so you'd think they'd get the idea, but no. And what else was in there? There was a nice poster of Panithor, which is the Kings of War world. So if I ever decide to put posters up, that'll be a good one. And what else was in there? There was a sticker. There was also, because it was the XL goodie bag, which is the one you pay extra for on your ticket, I got the Frost Giant in there as well, which I'm going to turn into a Tentacle Giant at some point for my Night Stalkers, even though I've already got 3. But I don't know how many you can possibly field, but I just like making and painting them. And then I can use them for Age of Sigmar as well, for my Giants army. So, dual-purpose Giants. And what else was in there? I think there was a get started in firefight box as well with the little sample rulebook, which I don't really need because I've already got the full rules for firefight, but I'm sure some people would appreciate that. And there were some little stairs in there for propping up your units on hills, which are always handy. And there was also, because I ran a Mantic army, Ronnie was wandering around giving £10 vouchers to everyone who had a Mantic army. So I've spent that already on an item that isn't in stock yet, so I ordered some of they're little terrain mats. So small ones, like you put them like the footprint of woods. So you rest it on the table, it's like the mouse mat material, and then you put the trees on top of it. And it just looks nice. So I ordered a set of those. So that's going to level up the appearance of my battlefields. And everyone just did a great job on Clash of Kings. The Mantic app. So, the Mantic app was struggling to deal with the workload because I don't think it's ever been tested for 196 players inputting data in it before. So, it was definitely being tested to its limit, but it didn't completely die on us, it seemed. There's a couple of times it looked like it was going to die, but it just about held out. So, it just held on in the end, and they were actually able to complete the tournament on time, which is good. And there were various tech wizards and the TO team working overtime to make sure it was all running smoothly. Minimal delays, considering the massive overload of the server with that many players on it. So, yeah, well done to all the TO team. And there was also, there was at least one player, I think it may have just been the one player, who was walking around with cake, which was great. I do like to take cakes to events sometimes, but I've been so busy lately that I couldn't even attempt to make a cake right now because I've been playing in too many tournaments. So it was a fellow Andy as well, who made some very nice cakes that were free from lactose. So I was actually able to have a piece. So that was really good. So yeah, the whole thing, just a very nice experience. Maybe the best Clash of Kings ever. Probably the best set of games I've had at a Clash of Kings in terms of the friendly atmos. So very pleased about that. Overall, really good. Highly recommend Clash of Kings for next year. Get them to expand the capacity even more. Everybody just go and sign up as soon as the tickets are available. Get them to open up 10 different rooms. Let's have 1,000 players at Clash of Kings. Why not? I'm sure the organising team would love it. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to comment. Give me any thoughts on anything that came up in this video. Any tactical thoughts. Any rules that you think you've seen played incorrectly as well. Drop those in there. They're always interesting to analyse. And all that remains to be said is, good night out there, whatever you are.